White. Wide open Torrence! Oh, baby! Touchdown! How do you leave the best receiver in the NAIA that wide open?
You show, and that's what we do! Cat!
You're proud of me?
And it's caught! Oh my goodness! Troy Torrence comes down with it!
Welcome all to Bankroll Blitz. It is week 5 of the NFL. Thank you so much for joining us right here on Pub Sports Radio. And I'm here alongside my co-host, my guy, Troy Torrence. Troy, it's week 5. How you feeling, my guy?
I've had better weeks. I felt better about things, but you know what? I'm feeling really good about this slate we got in front of us today. I made some mistakes last week, lost my composure, went on a little bit of a tilt with some live bets and whatnot, but it's time to bounce back. I'm back. I got my fucking headspace back right and ready to get after it, man.
You know, you still had a positive week, and so that's a really good sign. I'm very frustrated. I went 5-5, down 0.7 units. I was 5-3 going into the Sunday nighter with 2 bets left, but I was wrong. You had the huge score with your Titans Buccaneers, part of your round robin action, but that paid out plus 476, and it takes big balls to bet these dogs on the money line. You've been successful at that all year. I find it very enjoyable to track your action with a plus 136 average line this year. It's impressive, and I like it, and I respect it. And I'm looking forward to week 5. Week 5, the 4 weeks we've had, what a roller coaster. Good God. It's the highs are so glorious. The lows are so painful. But you are sitting in a nice spot, plus 5.63 units after 4 weeks. ROI plus 8.28%. I mean, that's a fantastic ROI. That's fantastic numbers.
Yeah, I mean, all transparency, I had a little bit more on the Browns, so that Watson news just sent me over the fucking top, because I had a little bit more than what I shared on Bankroll Blitz. But at the same time, all's well that ends well, man. It's week 5. We got a long season ahead of us, but it's going to happen fast. So we got to be ready.
We got a lot of work to do right now. Thank you all for joining us. We got the truth teller in the house, my guy Al Cervic, and the nuke worker ready to get to work. The kid says time to cook. I love it. I love seeing everybody here. I want that cat ready to get to work as well. We got Mac Beavers, Jay Smooth, Jedi for Life, Sammy Calmer, Andrew Hal, Harold Williams, Terry Walker, Markel. It's great to see all of you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's just do a quick review of what happened last week. For me, the Bills cashed. Miami, Buffalo, first half under 27 was atrocious, and you knew it right away. Baltimore, Cleveland under 41 was a casher. Cincinnati, Tennessee under 41.5 was a casher. The Colts almost came back and took care of me, but Tampa Bay, the line market went way against us, and we cashed comfortably. I cashed the Tampa Bay, New Orleans under 40.5 comfortably. At that point, I'm 5-2, but that doesn't count the Minnesota, Carolina over 45.5. I was just wrong about that. And then KC, New York Jets under 42.5. I only lost by a hook, but it felt like I lost a lot more than that. But we cashed live on the under 47.5 and the under 50.5. So I made all that money back. And then the Giants -1 was just abysmal. And I was 12-3 with my live action going into the Monday nighter, and I lost 3 live bets there as well to go 12-6.
Were they all on the Giants?
No, they weren't. They weren't. They were with totals. One was a live over, and one was a live Giants team total over. But I don't bet player props. I try to keep everything so clean. But after the half, I was like, I knew that the Giants were going to be coming from, forcing it, coming from behind, and the interception prop there at plus 185 was staring at me. I had my finger on it, and I was like, look, I've got to keep everything clean here. I'm a high-volume gambler. I cut player props out of my action last year. I had 11 straight winning months in the best year of my career. But sometimes you need to press the button, man. And I needed to right there. That plus 185 would have taken care of everything. But it is what it is. That was my week. That was disappointing. 5-5 down, 0.51 units. Troy Torrence, Lions -1.5 was a casher, and Lions money line was a casher. She got off to a great start. Then the Ridley over 63.5 receiving yards. The revenge factor didn't come to fruition. The Browns money line and the Browns spread hurt you. You cashed with the teaser on the Eagles Titans. You cashed with the under 41. We were both on for Cincinnati, Tennessee. You cashed on the Bucks. You cashed on the teaser with the Bucks and the Chargers. Then in the round robin money line action, you cashed at plus 476 to Tennessee, Tampa Bay, a section of that round robin, and you had the Patriots in it. So the plus 684 with Tennessee and the plus 737 with Tampa were losers, but still overall that was very rewarding for you. Patriots +7 and Patriots money line. You know, it's funny, the losses we took, we didn't just lose, we got kicked in the teeth on them. The Jets team total under 16.5. Zach Wilson, performed. The Jets KC under 42.5. We lost, even though we only lost that by a hook. We lost that pretty quick. It was pretty quickly, like we were in grave danger. I mean, that live total got up to 56.5 for that game. KC -2 and the under 48 was a nice teaser that cashed for you. And then the Giants -1 was a loser here. Slim in the house says, can't believe it's week 5 already. Get to the bag. Let's get to the bag. Slatsy, thank you for joining us. Birdie, Ron Crawford, Vipe, Gerald Jones, Untouchable J, Vaughn Polo, Real Deal Prime, Ronnie Walsek, Coin. All you guys, thank you so much for joining us. Let's get right to work. Sammy Comer dropping his action in the chat. And Gerald Jones says, my daughter Lyrica turned 3 today. Congratulations, Gerald. It's a great feeling watching your children grow up in these young birthdays. Carter's turning 3 February 9th. So I know the fun around that age. So congratulations. Your birthday, October 9th. My birthday tomorrow. Thank you for the kind words there. Means a ton. And let's get Sammy Comer's action. Jacksonville first half plus 3.5. Atlanta money line and the -1 leading. Baltimore, Pittsburgh under. Colts, Rams, Chiefs, 49ers under. I'm going to copy and paste all that just so we can have that for information. There are buys this week. The Browns, Chargers, Seahawks, and Buccaneers are on buys. So the show won't hit 3 hours, right? Won't hit 3 hours. Let's get to work right now. Thursday, October 5th, 8:15 p.m. Eastern. The Chicago Bears 0-4, 0-2 on the road at the Washington Commanders 2-2, 1-1 at home. We're at FedExField in Landover, Maryland. 72 Fahrenheit, partly cloudy, 6 miles per hour is the weather. Let's get right into the line history here for this one. Again, we're going to be using Pinnacle lines, and Pinnacle doesn't drop them until the games are finished. So what we have here is a 6.5. The 6.5 was opened up heavily juiced to the Chicago Bears. Then there was a flip. The 6.5 yesterday was heavily juiced to the Washington Commanders. And we're talking heavily juiced. So it opens up at -116, gets up to -118 for the Bears. The next thing you know, it's -121, the 6.5. -121 here for the Commanders. And then it flips right back to the Bears. Bears get up to -127 just 3 hours ago. They got up to -128 even. Right now they're sitting at -121. So 5 cents of movement at the +6.5 number. But if you look around, where are the other +6.5s? They're not there. All the other books are hanging 5.5s. Pinnacle hanging at 6.5. Let's go into the total for this one. This total sitting at 44.5, and it's heavily juiced to the under. This total opened up at 44.5 and immediately went up to 45.5, but it only lasted there for, I guess it lasted there for about 12 hours. So it lasted there for 12 hours before it went down to 44.5, which is where it is right now. And it is juiced to the under. Let's take a look at the Tuesday cash flow for this one. Again, this game pops off in almost exactly 48 hours. 47% of the tickets and 50% of the cash on the Bears. It's a bum fight. And now I know the Commanders, if you watch them against the Eagles, you could say, no, they're not bums. But if you watch them against the Bills, you could say, I know they're bums. From the total side of things, we have 63% of tickets and 69% of cash on the over. Andrew House says the Commanders win by a tutty. Terry Walker says Washington or nothing. Markel and Sammy say pass. They don't want it. They don't want it. Bears come in off their 14th straight loss, a wild 31-28 setback at home to the Broncos. On the bright side, it's the best that their offense has looked all season. They were up 28-7 with a minute left in the third quarter. They lost despite outgaining the Broncos 471 to 311. 160 more yards. They got 26 first downs compared to Denver's 17. Justin Fields, 28 of 35 for a career high 335 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. He also ran 4 times for 25 yards. He did lose a fumble, but you have to imagine that his confidence is high. He completed his first 16 passes. DJ Moore caught 8 of them for 131 yards and a touchdown. That's exactly what they thought about when they traded for him. Cole Kmet caught 7 passes for 85 yards and 2 touchdowns. Khalil Herbert was a boss. 18 carries for 103 yards while catching 4 passes for 19 yards and a touchdown. Looks like Chase Claypool may have played his last game in the Bears uniform. I'm embarrassed that he is from Abbotsford, which is about an hour away from where I grew up. I am embarrassed with his actions and his beacon. Just shut up. You're on a losing team. Play hard. Keep your head down and play hard. Shut up. What an idiot. Bears struggled to develop a pass rush, finishing with 1 sack and 4 quarterback hits. They couldn't get stops when they needed it most, and it's their secondary. We're going to be talking about it through this breakdown. We're going to be talking about it until they get healthier. Already without Kyler Gordon, who's on the IR with a broken hand. They're also missing defensive backs Eddie Jackson and Jalen Johnson, and it hurts them badly. The Commanders come in off a tough 34-31 overtime loss at Philadelphia. It's okay. I can say it. I'm being wrong about Sam Howell. Now, when you say negative things about a quarterback, and then the only times you bet him, he's terrible, maybe that's the karma that you deserve. But he had a strong game on Sunday, 29-41 for 290 yards and a touchdown. He also ran 6 times for 40 yards. This came a week after he threw 4 interceptions and was sacked 9 times. The offensive line gave him time to throw. And when he has it, he's got gamers. Scary Terry caught 8 for 86. Curtis Samuel caught 7 for 51, but still dealing with the quad injury. So he's not going to practice this week. He's going to be listed as questionable, but I expect him to be in the lineup. Then you have Jaden Dotson doing the same thing. He's dealing with an ankle injury. He's not going to be practicing this week. I'm not quite as confident in Dotson as I am with Samuel that they'll both be in the lineup. Brian Robertson Jr. had 14 carries for 45 yards. The offense was 8 of 17 on 3rd down and 2 of 2 on 4th down. 4 or 5 in the red zone against the Eagles. The defense struggled to get stops. The very dangerous front 7 did manage to sack Hurts 3 times and hit him 8 times. And defensive back Jartavius Martin suffered a thumb injury. And also Christian Holmes did not play as he's dealing with a back injury. So those are 2 defensive backs. Take it away for us here, Troy. Do you find an angle? Do you see an angle for our Thursday nighter at FedExField, Bears Commanders?
Yes, I do. I have an angle in this game. I have some action, and I'll get to that in a minute. But I mistimed my read. I heard you talking and made me think about how I mistimed my read on Sam Howell. A perfect example of when and when not to buy a quarterback like Sam Howell. They went on the road versus the Broncos, massive comeback, massively overperformed. That's when you sell them. I got it wrong. They got trounced by the Bills. At home, they get killed by the Bills. 4 picks, 7 sacks. That's when you want to buy them. Sure enough, they definitely covered the spread last week. And if you look at the advanced metrics, they would say the Commanders should have won that game. And I actually watched that full game. I think that those advanced metrics were right. So I was lucky to squeeze out that teaser, and that's how I feel. Bears overperformed versus the worst defense in the NFL, a historically bad defense. And I'll get into some specific metrics later because I'm fading the Broncos this week to be outright with it. 2 conflicting narratives in Chicago make it difficult for me to really pinpoint exactly what's going to happen here because Bears tanking gets them the 1st and 2nd round draft picks if they just tank it from here. And I don't see why they wouldn't want to do that at this point, looking how bad things are. But on the other side, you got Fields and the coaching staff that are fighting for their jobs. And I tend to think that they're going to fire this coach anyway. So I'm not sure how much that really matters. And if the Bears can't pressure Sam Howell, I mean, the Commanders should be able to take advantage of this terrible Bears defense, the worst pass rush in the NFL. And that doesn't pair well with the defensive secondary that's beat up and not good in the first place, or at least have underperformed at the very least. And you got Commanders on the other side with a great pass rush. And I just think, I just cannot see the Bears winning this game. When I start to look at some of the advanced metrics on the Bears defense and just the Bears in its entirety, I think we're lucky to get under a touchdown. However, the line movement at this point is starting to make me think of the Lions game in week 2, where I had a similar spot. I was on the Lions. I took a loss with them. I took a massive loss in week 2. And it was, this line is looking a lot like how that one was moving down under the 6 into the 5.5, except for I really am not a believer in the Chicago Bears. I think that they want to tank this season. It only makes sense at this point to tank this season. And the only difference in this game from that first corollary spot with the Lions is that the Commanders are coming off a loss. The Lions were coming off a win against the defending champs on the road. I think there's a fine line there. So I played the Commanders in a teaser. That's my first leg, and the next leg is coming up soon.
All right, Troy has the Commanders in a teaser. For those of you who are sitting here saying, slam Washington, I truly believe the only thing that really angered me this past week was that I wanted the Titans and I wanted the Cowboys and I got talked off them. I certainly wasn't on the other side, but you talk about the, buy low, sell high spot. And we're going to hammer it home all the time. You could say that this is a sell high spot on both of these teams because they both look good last week, but the Bears played the Broncos and the Commanders played the Super Bowl finalist Eagles. I do not want the Commanders after looking so good. Not a chance. This is not where I want them. Not where I want them. In saying that, I get what Birdie's talking about. If the Bears secondary is weak, if the Bears are incapable of putting pressure on Howell's going to be able to put up numbers. So, of course, why is the total at 44.5? Why? How many points did these two teams put up last week? 20.
The Bears aren't going to score very many points this week.
I agree, but the bias of what we just saw is in effect. These teams put up a combined 59 points last week, and this total is at 44.5. Now, the first move was to the over. And then it came back. And I need to, I'm sitting here, my record's up there, and I'm frustrated. I want to attack spots that I have a ton of confidence in. This just does not appeal to me. Yes, the over is in my head because I just watched them put up all these points. The market is telling me that they're opening up their arms to over cash. I do not want the Commanders. I'm not going to ever bet a team after a great performance, and that's what we just saw. And that's that.
So a losing effort.
Yes,
a team going home with 2 consecutive losses. Yeah, I get you though. I totally understand. I wish we didn't start with this game, to be honest, but.
And the Commanders are your 6-point teaser here. So what did you get them at?
I got it at minus 0.5, so a half point.
Minus 0.5. All right. Jerry Beatty says Washington still has a hell of a defense. Do they? Because if you were playing Madden, you'd think so. But you're watching these guys week in and week out, and you're like, is this the most dangerous group of that front four? I mean, They certainly are superstar names. Are they playing like superstars? No. So, all right.
But they're going up against some minor leaguers on the offensive line. But it's okay. I know. I get the sentiment here. I do.
I can't. I mean, yes, the over makes sense, and yes, Washington makes sense, and I stopped myself from that. It just doesn't correlate and it doesn't work for me, and that sucks. So, people watching this video wanting to see a pick. These aren't just picks. We're betting them, and our life depends on us succeeding. So thank God Troy's got a teaser spot because I ain't got shit. Let's move on. We want to move on to Sunday, October 8th, and we head over to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London, England. The Jacksonville Jaguars 2-2 at the Buffalo Bills 3-1. 75 Fahrenheit, partly cloudy, 8 miles per hour. We get very nice weather here for these games in the UK, something that we are not used to. Let's get into the line history here for this one. And this is fascinating. So this is new territory. When we've got a capper like Troy Torrence, who's building up his database, this is new territory with a team playing back-to-back weeks over in the UK. So we have a team that is comfortable, they're acclimated, and you have a team that won't be. And I was trying so hard to get the travel information for the Bills all day, going over the beat writers, still couldn't get it. This total is sitting at 48.5. It opened up at 48.5. It did drop to 47.5. It just bounced back up this morning to 48.5. It's 48.5 across the board here right now. We'll go into the spread for this one. This one is sitting now at 5.5. It opened up at 5.5. It opened up at minus 106 for the Buffalo Bills. There have been times where they've been juiced up to minus 114, and they're right back at minus 106. And I tell you, somebody's going to have to talk me off the Jaguars right now. That's what's going to have to happen here. This is the type of situation that I want to attack. And we talk about you never want to lose, ever want to lose. You want to win every bet. But what spots are you okay losing? I'm not okay losing on the Commanders minus 6.5, feeling good about themselves at home against a weak opposition, coming off their best game of the season. I know it came in L. That's not the spot I want to lose. But this might be a spot where I don't mind losing here. 15% of the tickets, 27% of the cash on the Jags. The Bills feeling so good about themselves off of a spectacular victory. And the Jaguars feeling good about themselves too and acclimated. And, Rand saying losing White is rough. We're going to talk all about that. Joe leaning Jags, needing more info. Terry Walker leaning Jags. Harold Williams says early, lean to the Jags. Nice C wants the Bills on an alt line. Coin saying Westgate open this at -4. Jared TG says, my brain says Bills, my gut says Jags. Sammy Comer says Jags first half plus 3.5. Says fading the Bills off that huge win, now traveling across the country, across the ocean, facing a team that's very familiar in these scenarios. See, in that case, Sammy, I want Troy to touch on this, is are their legs going to be heavier in the second half than they will in the first half? That would create a want or a need to have them full game instead of first half. Birdie says, again, this seems like a Jag spot, especially with all the Bills' secondary injuries. I'm not stepping in front of the Bills here. So many people betting Jags because they are staying in England. That's true. That's true. And this is why this show is so important to me. And I'm pretty selfish on this show. I want everything. I'm here listening to the cappers in the chat. I'm hammering questions to Troy. This is for me to succeed, and it has worked. Last year was a monster season here on this show. So the cash flow here, 15%, 27% of tickets on the Jaguars is right in my wheelhouse. Now, Birdie, if you're saying that you're hearing all these people on the Jags, I mean, that's certainly not what the books are indicating here. And I imagine that the public is not your colleagues and your friends. Let's get into the X's and O's here. Jaguars had a big bounce back performance in their week 4 23-7 win in London. Trevor Lawrence, 23 of 30 for 207 yards and a touchdown. He also ran 8 times for 42 yards. He's now 2-1 in London. Christian Kirk caught 8 passes for 84 yards. Evan Engram caught 7 for 59 yards. Etienne ran 20 times for 55, caught 3 for 17. It wasn't a very good offensive performance, but the defense looked strong. But the question is the defense strong, or is Ritter trash in the Falcons offense garbage? These are the decisions you have to make on your own so that you can comfortably make a move and put your money on it. The Falcons didn't get a first down until early in the second quarter. Josh Allen was a monster. 3 sacks, 3 quarterback hits. As a team, they finished with 4 sacks and 7 quarterback hits, picked off Ritter twice. Darius Williams returned one of them, 61 yards for a score. Andre Sisco had the other one. Jamal Agnew was inactive. He was listed as questionable. Parker Washington, his backup, suffered a knee injury in the first half. His first snap, I should say. And he is listed as week to week. And Doug Peterson said Agnew is good to go. Agnew will be in the lineup here. No team has played 2 games internationally in the same season, let alone back-to-back weeks. That's what we were talking about off the top. The Jaguars believe they'll hold a big advantage over the Bills as they're already acclimated to being overseas. And here we go. Bills come in off that very impressive 48-20 win at home over the Dolphins. We were all like, I don't remember being on the side with so many of my friends and colleagues as we were on the Bills this week. They won each of their last 3 games by at least 28 points. That's tied for the longest streak in the Super Bowl era. They've now won 8 straight at home and have beaten the Fish in 12 of their past 14. And they lose Tre'Davious White for the season with a torn Achilles, coming off his first healthy offseason since tearing his ACL in week 12 of 2021. The offense looks very strong. They scored on 8 of its first 9 possessions. They were 5 of 6 in the red zone. Josh Allen was 21 of 25 for 320 yards, 4 touchdowns, and no picks. He looks spectacular. Stephon Diggs got 6 for 120 and 3 touchdowns. His 4th career 3-touchdown game. Latavius Murray, James Cook, and Damian Harris all getting opportunities to run the ball now. The defense was very good. Held the Dolphins at 3 of 10 on 3rd down, 0 of 3 on 4th down. Let's talk about this Bills defense. They're generating pressure 46% of the time. That's the second highest in the NFL. Their sack rate's at 12%. That's the highest in the NFL. They blitz on just 16% of their plays, the second lowest in the NFL. This is a bad group. These guys are bad men. Now they lose Tre'Davious White. Against the Dolphins, they had 4 sacks, 9 quarterback hits. Dolphins had allowed just 1 sack in their first 3. Von Miller started the season on the PUP list due to the ACL and knee injury that he suffered week 12 of 2022, and he's going to practice this week. So he missed the first 4 games. He's eligible. He's going to practice. Poyer hurt right now. I don't know if he's going to get in, Von Miller. I'm curious to hear what you have to say, but I'm curious what you have to say about all of that, and I'm curious to hear what the chat's saying. So take it away, Troy. Jacksonville, Buffalo, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, London, England.
So I have a lot on this game. I'm going to try to condense it down, and the first thing that sticks out to me is the line being a little bit short. I just feel like the Bills laying this amount of points in this spot, I just feel like it should be bigger. I know we're probably getting a little bit of value because of what the Bills just did last week, and maybe a little bit on the opposite side too. Maybe that offsets and negates it to some extent. But Jags finally getting the win column, but they played the Falcons, and people are hammering the Falcons in the chat right now, saying that's what kind of opponent is that? And I kind of agree, man. I've been talking about how they're fraudulent for weeks now. No offense, overrated defense, and who I think is the worst quarterback in the NFL. And the score is a little bit misleading. I mean, supposedly advanced metrics had this game at 8. I know it's a 2-possession game, but that's just a little bit of a point there. But am I in the business of fading the Bills off that emotional win? I think so. I think that'd be the only way I could look. I mean, their blowout win was definitely no fluke. They dominated all phases of the game, but the psychology in this game is just crazy. Coming off that huge emotional win, now you have to fly across the ocean and go play in a country that's not your own. That's not an easy thing to do. I just really look at this number, and it just seems like it's going to be short. And to be honest, I would like to fade both these teams after a week they both won like they did last week. I really do think there's a big gap between these teams at the end of the day. I've been shorting the Jags all season. Last week was, I think, the first week I didn't fade the Jags. But it's just, in all honesty, if I was going to fade the Bills, I think it would be with a team that could run the ball more, Jimmy. I want to see a rushing attack against the Bills because I think they're actually allowing the highest yards per carry right now in the NFL. I know teams are usually trailing behind them, so they're not getting a lot of carries in the first place. And if they are, there's probably hella room to roam because they're up by 20 points and they're, they're running it on 3rd and 10. But I think what Sam said, I think in the chat, first half would make the most sense in this spot if I was going to take the Jags. So, seeing Sammy Comer on that, and I kind of would get behind the first half rather than the full game. Maybe they get slapped in the mouth and wake up at halftime, but I just can't get behind this Jags team in the full game.
I wish I could. I also feel like, and I know it's scary when you just watch the Bills put up, basically the total of this game against the Dolphins last week, but I think the under is becoming a heavier and heavier lean for me right now. The Jaguars know, Doug Peterson knows that he can't fight fire with fire. He's got to keep the Jaguars offense on the field. How do you do that? You do that with Travis Etienne. And I think it's a very interesting angle that's being talked about by Slatsy and Birdie in the chat. As Slatsy saying the Bills arriving for the first time should be all business. Jags week 2 of a vacation. I think if that's a little, I think that might be, and I said from the beginning of this breakdown that I need to be talked off the Jags. And I think that that's happened here. And I'm okay with that. I'm not betting the Bills under any circumstances. So right now, I'm going to be looking very, very closely at that under. The problem is, we need to sort of see this defense for the Bills without Tre'Davious White. I want to see it. Joe disagrees with the business vacation angle. That's part of the fun of this show, that nobody takes offense when we disagree. It's important to disagree. We want to hear all sides of the story, so it's important. Nuke Worker says Bills Mafia will be there under a TD. I have to take Buffalo if I play this. All right. And Rizzo said Jags stayed over in London after Sunday's game. Bills flying out on Thursday for what it's worth. I was trying to find that out, Rizzo. Thank you. For Thursday. God, for me, a hundo, I fly out on Wednesday. I don't understand why people wait so long. Now, they're not waiting until Friday. We've seen that debacle. Wow. All right. Birdie says that under does make sense. I just have concerns about the Bills' secondary. Is Miller playing? Jags have get their left tackle back, don't they? There's still question marks around what the offensive line is going to look like for the Jags at this point. Loyalty Chisel says historically we play the Bills tough, but they have our number. Okay, I'm very, very interested in the under, but this is not a bet I make tonight. Is there anything you want to have at least as a lean or anything for us before we move on to the next game?
I'm leaning Jags first half, but no, I'm not going to be betting that game.
All right, let's move on. Next up for us, 1 p.m. Eastern, the mighty Houston Texans. 2-2, 1-1 on the road at the Atlanta Falcons. 2-2, 2-0 at home. Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia. Let's get over to the line history here for this one. We'll start with the total. Pinnacle's moved it to 41. It came out and it moved to 42. I guess it did take about 15 hours. So it came out, came out on Sunday, 8:02 p.m., 11:15 a.m. the next day moves to 42. Then it comes back to 41. So that's the situation we're in. So we still had an 8-cent move to the over from this opening line. Let's take a look at the spread here for this one. We're sitting at 1 at Pinnacle. It's not a real 1 because the -1 for Atlanta is -119. It did open up -2.5 though at a pick'em. So there certainly has been a move, a real move towards the Houston Texans, who are riding very high and feeling very good about themselves. Let's get over to the cash flow for this one and see what we're dealing with. We have 43% of the tickets, 58% of cash on the under. And from a spread perspective, you have 69% of the tickets and 65% of the cash on the Texans. Again, the Texans coming off the 36 victory and feeling very good about themselves. In this scenario, I find it a little different than other teams because they've only known losing. And then D'Amico Ryan has come over there and changed the game, changed the feeling, changed what it means to be a Texans fan and to be a Houston Texan. So I do think this is a little different. Texans coming off the very impressive 36 victory at home over the Steelers. They outgained the Steelers 451 to 225. CJ Stroud, 16-30 for 306 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. That's the second most yards by a rookie through his first 4 games in NFL history. 1,212 yards, second only to Cam Newton in 2011, 1,386. Second 300-yard passing game, 6 touchdown passes. He set an NFL record with 151 pass attempts without an interception. A rookie record. Set an NFL rookie record, 151 pass attempts without an interception. The first rookie since the merger with 250 yards, 2 TDs, and no interceptions in 3 straight games. This kid is for real. The offensive line has done a great job protecting him. TJ Watt came in with 6 sacks under his belt. But nobody could get to Stroud. Nobody. And they've been protecting him without Laramie Tunsil, who's missed his 3rd straight game with a knee injury. Now, Kendrick Green hurt his knee in the 4th quarter. Is Tunsil going to come back? Is a huge, huge question mark right now. Nico Collins caught 7 passes for 168 yards, 2 touchdowns. Damian Pierce ran 24 times for 81 yards. He also caught a 27-yard pass. D'Amico and Matt Burke have done a hell of a job with this defense. Held the Steelers to 12 first downs, 0-2 in the red zone. Jonathan Greener was amazing. 5 tackles, 3 for a loss, 2 sacks, 3 quarterback hits. Steven Nelson had a pick. The Falcons come back from the UK with a lot of question marks. Their offense looked horrible in that 23-7 loss at Wembley. They didn't get a first down until early in the 2nd quarter. Ritter was terrible. 19-31 for 191 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, also lost a fumble. Jonnu Smith led receivers with 6 catches for 95 yards. And here we go again. Drake London and Kyle Pitts doing nothing. Drake London, again, doing nothing. He's not pleased. They combined Drake London and Kyle Pitts for 5 catches for 49 yards. London did have a TD. Bijan Robinson, 14 carries for 105 yards, caught 5 for 32. He's a monster. The defense tried to keep the Falcons in it. The Jags only had 1 trip in the Falcons' red zone, and they were put there because of a Ritter interception. The Falcons held their ground and stopped the Jags on 4th and short. They finished with 2 sacks and 7 quarterback hits, but their DB, D. Alfred's in concussion protocol, and we've seen these guys in concussion protocol not get back the following week. Take it away, Troy. The floor is yours. Texans, Falcons.
When I first started looking at this game, I knew I wanted the Falcons, and I wanted them pretty bad. I was trying to plan out how this line would move, and sure enough, I got what I wanted. I wanted the 1.5. I know it's 1 at some books. At most books now, most of the public books, they're all at 2.5, but they all did touch 1.5 at a certain point. The loss to the Jags, I think, in London, it was a bit misleading. The final score even said that it was a bit misleading. And Ritter, even though I said multiple times, he's probably the worst quarterback in the NFL. And I wish Heineke was behind center. There's no doubt about that. But the biggest thing about this game to me is that the Texans grade out as the 32nd run defense in the NFL. And they grade out on multiple different, rating systems as bad against the run. I think that the Falcons at home, where Desmond Ritter is way more comfortable, visibly more comfortable than he is on the road. I think he's undefeated at home too. And I think most times he's a dog, but I'm not sure about that. Maybe he has only 4 or 5 games at home, but still, nonetheless, undefeated at home. Texans are going to struggle to defend the run in this game. That's how I see this game happening now. Is it easy fading the Texans after what you've seen? Absolutely not. CJ Stroud has been surgical at quarterback. He commands the offense. He executes the game plan, drives the ball downfield. 23 passes of 10-plus yards, 11 passes of 20-plus yards last week. That's pretty impressive for a rookie QB versus that pass rush of the Steelers. No doubt about it. But Stroud does lead the NFL in poor pass rate, which came as a huge surprise to me that he hasn't thrown a pick, but he leads the NFL in poor pass rate. So I tried to scrape it a little bit. And no matter how you look at it, if you want to take out all the bullshit where he throws the ball out of bounds, he spikes the ball sometime during the game, take all that out, the highest poor pass rate in the NFL. I think eventually, despite how highly I think of this kid, and I've been speaking how highly I think about him, despite all that, one of these games he's going to throw 2-3 picks. And what's better than the Falcons pissed off, coming back home off a few losses in a row, ability to go ground and pound, got the tandem of Algier and Bijan Robinson behind one of the best run-blocking offensive lines in the league. And, the Texans, their strong suit is their secondary, their coverage. They forced the lowest day dot, so the lowest targets, average yards of target, they forced the lowest amount. I mean, that's perfect for Desmond Ritter. That's where Desmond Ritter likes to eat. And I don't think they're going to be able to defend the run. So, I think that this line should be more along the lines of Falcons -3. So I'm on the Falcons. I already took it. I tweeted it out. And I think that this number is going to move back towards the 3 when it's all said and done.
What was the number that you got?
I got -1.5 at -112.
Wow, that's a wildly interesting.
As soon as I started to see that buyback, I grabbed it immediately. It was 1, then it was 1.5, and then it started to juice, and I just grabbed it. I know Pinnacle's still hanging the 1, but like you said, it's more of like a 1.5, 2.
With the Atlanta Falcons going to be moving the ball through the ground, on the ground, heavily in this game, and the Texans secondary strong, did it lean you towards thinking about an under?
Absolutely. It definitely had me thinking about the under, but I just had that. And I just told my boy, the kid, that you go broke following your gut. I mean, he knows how I feel about following your gut, but my gut tells me that there could be some turnovers in this game. And you don't want to be on the ass side of some bad turnovers that lead to quick scores. But the under is definitely is grabbing my attention, especially with the market right now. It's sitting under that 42.5. You got the sharp money on the under, public all over the over.
Mm-hmm.
It's looking perfect, right? I'll have to consider that heavily.
I'm going to be thinking heavily about this under. This is not another bet that I don't feel comfortable moving on this evening, but the under is in close to my wheelhouse here. Then we have Troy moving on the Falcons -1.5 at -112. We move on. 1 p.m. Eastern, Carolina Panthers 0-4, 0-2 on the road. The Detroit Lions 3-1, 1-1 at home. Ford Field in Detroit, Michigan. Let's get into the line history here for this one. Panthers, Lions, and this is a huge, huge line we're dealing with. Other books open this at different numbers. Pinnacle opened it at 10. They opened it at 10, And, of course, the money started coming on Carolina. Carolina got to minus 130. How long did it take them to get to minus 130? It took them about 17 hours to get to minus 130. And it gets there, minus 133 even. And then it starts buying back. And it's all the way down to minus 114 this afternoon, now minus 116. So the plus 10 for the Panthers is being hung by Pinnacle. And you don't see it at 10 anywhere else. And we know how crucial that number is. Take a look at the total next. Move over to the total for this one. And we have this sitting at 45. BetChris and Bookmaker moved it to 44.5. This opened up at 43.5, and it got all the way up to 46. And that happened in another, 18 hours. It took 18 hours to move up 2.5 points. Now, there's been a point of buyback since then. That's a big, big move to the over. Let's get into the cash flow for this Lions spot here. Sorry, move over here. 86% of the tickets and 80% of the cash is on the Detroit Lions. Ooh, that's a lot. It's a lot. Then 83% of tickets, 85% cash on the over, and it's moving in that direction. Coin saying Westgate opened Detroit up at -7. Harold Williams got the 8.5 on the line, so he already took it. Says this will be a revenge spot. There's our guy Perky Sanderson in the house. And Sammy Comer saying if Dalton was playing, he'd move on Carolina. The Panthers come in off a 21-13 loss at home to the Vikings. There was no point in dropping the stat when we were talking about the Bears. And maybe there's no point talking about the stat when we're talking about the Panthers. But of the 164 teams that have started 0-4 in the Super Bowl era, only one made the playoffs. 1992 Chargers. The offense struggled, putting up just 232 yards. Total yards. Bryce Young was 25-32 for 204 yards. He did lose a fumble, but there was some good things happening for him. Adam Thielen led receivers with 7 catches for 76 yards. Terrace Marshall led receivers, also had led receivers with 9 catches, but just for 56 yards. Miles Sanders struggled once again. 19 yards on 13 carries, and Chuba came in, and Hubbard became the guy. 14 carries for 41 yards on the ground. I think we'll see more of that as we move forward. The defense was very strong, and they tried to keep the Panthers in it. And, this injury-riddled secondary was very good. It was very good. Sam Franklin returned an interception, 99 yards to the house. Camus Grugier-Hill also had an interception. But cornerback Dante Jackson left the game in the first half with a shoulder injury. I couldn't get an update. They've already come. They don't have J.C. Horn and Xavier Woods already. So there's 2 defensive backs out. And they were strong. They were really good. There was a lot of reasons why I wanted the over last week, and I was very wrong. And this secondary that's already this defense that lost their captain early in the year, and Shaq Thompson, is playing really well. They held the Vikings to just 14 first downs and just 265 total yards. That really took me by surprise. They held the Vikings to just 1 of 8 on third down and just 2 red zone trips. Look, I'm not a huge Vikings fan, but I did not expect that this defense, missing all these key components, would step up the way they did. The Lions come in off extra rest following their impressive 34-20 win in Green Bay last Thursday. They were up 27-3 at the half, outgained Green Bay heavy. They had 10 more first downs than the Packers. In that first half, they outgained Green Bay 284-21. Overall, 401-230. Goff was 19-28 for 210 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. But it was David Montgomery. He was the star of the show. 32 carries, 121 yards, 3 touchdowns. Caught 2 passes for 20 yards. He's stepping up. First Detroit player to top 100 yards with 3 rushing TDs since 2000. James Stewart in 2000. And thanks to Montgomery, they held onto the ball for 37 minutes and 58 seconds of the game. Reynolds, 3 catches for 69 yards. Monroe St. Brown, 5 for 56. Sammy Laporta continuing this great start to his career, 4 catches for 56. The defense was very strong. Held the Packers to just 27 yards rushing. That's it. They swarmed Jordan Love, 5 sacks, 11 quarterback hits. Jerry Jacobs had 2 picks. Now there's 4 Lions that missed the game. Their fullback, who's not as important as their offensive tackle, Halapoulivaati Vaitai, or their cornerback Emmanuel Mosley, or their safety Kirby Joseph, they were all ruled out. David Montgomery's dealing with a thigh injury, and Jonah Jackson with a thigh injury, and Frank Ragnow with a toe injury. They all played the whole game and looked fine. But Taylor Decker did re-injure his ankle. I expect him not to be in the lineup. Brian Branch injured his ankle in the third quarter. Now they're both saying, the coach people are saying that because they have the extra rest, it'll help give them a chance to be in the lineup. But that's an important safety, and their left tackle Taylor Decker. Take it away for us, Troy. Do you find an angle? Do you see an angle? You're getting paid in Panthers Lions.
Yeah, so this is the other leg of my teaser, and I got the Lions, and this is kind of going against your rule, Jimmy, that you don't back a team that looks so good and the team that the Panthers definitely look better than they have in the past. But we already know where these two quarterbacks are in the stages of their career, completely different. Bryce Young coming off his best game by far versus what I think is one of the worst defenses in the NFL, probably bottom 5-10 defenses in the NFL. I think they're ranked around there, and I have them there as well. I don't see a path for this Panthers team to win this game. They're bottom of the league in all the metrics that I value: pass block, QB play, run defense. But their pass rush has been pretty impressive, and they're ranking in the top 5 of the NFL, which came as a huge surprise to me. The only problem with that is the Lions' ability to manipulate the pocket with play action. I think that's going to take away from that defensive line a lot. And this defensive line, they could rush the passer, but they can't defend the run. That's proven to be damn true. The only problem with this game to me when I'm looking at it is that they're the highest in the luck rankings. The Panthers are I think they're number 1 right now in the NFL luck rankings. And I've been following the luck rankings because they've delivered some really good information, namely the Vikings and the Giants from last year, right? The two luckiest teams in the NFL. Look what's happening with those two teams, just shit shows this year. So maybe the Panthers have something in them. I just struggling to find it, especially in this spot. When it comes to the Lions, they continue to get better, especially on defense. They're starting to be they're impressive. At least to me, they are. They're a top 5 team in the NFL and quickly climbing. I have them in my rankings top 5 right now. Maybe they're not there in a lot of the advanced rankings, but I have them there. They've been dominant at the line of scrimmage, way more on the offensive side than on the defensive side, but they're coming along on the defensive side. They've come a long way from where they were last year. They got a quarterback that can go through all of his progressions, make the read, and then make the throw at every level of the field. They got a hungry coaching staff, and they got a city of Detroit who's hungry as hell for a successful team. I probably would be laying the 8.5, whatever it is now. It's probably up. I grabbed it at 8.5, so I got the teaser leg at -2.5. But I probably would be laying the points if it wasn't for the luck rankings. And that's just me being honest. And here's one thing I thought about as soon as I started looking at this game is corollary spot. What happened last time? The Lions came off a road victory. It was after week 1. They beat the defending champs in KC, came home, and got punched in the mouth by Seattle. And that stuck around with me. And then I watched that game last night, and I was like, maybe I'm overreacting to the Seahawks a little bit, but I'm thinking that maybe I was dead wrong about this team. Because a lot of what I was talking about with the Seattle team being shit has not come to fruition. But I think that because that has already happened, I don't think Dan Campbell's going to let his team forget how they came home and took that L after beating the Chiefs, after having a monumental victory for this fucking organization. I don't think they're going to forget that. I don't think Campbell's the type of coach that will let them forget that. So I think that the Lions at one point were a perfect teaser leg. The Panthers' run defense is bad. Madison averaged 5.6 yards per carry. Kenneth Walker, 5.4 yards per carry. Algier and Bijan both averaged over 5 yards per carry on double-digit carries. I think the Lions are going to dominate time of possession. And the problem is, my biggest problem with the Panthers and a lot of teams that are coming up here is that the Panthers, they just have no big playability. They can't stretch the field vertically. I mean, you can't stretch the field vertically, and you can start fitting the safeties in on the run game and start jumping routes down low. It turns to shit. The offense cannot operate like that. Panthers, only 2 passes of 20-plus yards all season long. Not completions, passes. Only 2 passes have traveled more than 20 yards in the air. That's insane to me. They averaged, I think this is Bryce Young, averages 3.6 yards per air attempt on the season. And in the past 2 years, this team only has 2 wins on the road. So I love the Lions in a teaser leg if you can get it on the money line. Hopefully the Sharps do buy it back, because I'll be glad if the Commanders fall apart. I'll be glad to go back in on the Lions.
The teaser leg that is locked in, Commanders -0.5, Lions -2.5. I don't want the Lions, and I don't want them in this situation. But I can understand everybody loving them. I get it. I agree with your take on the inability for the Panthers to create offense when they need it. Were you surprised that their secondary stood up against the Vikings aerial attack? Is that is it more of a comment on the Vikings aerial game not being as strong as maybe we thought it was?
No, I thought very impressive. I think they were spot on with that, with the points you were making on their secondary. I thought they did an incredible job. They definitely approached the bracketing of Justin Jefferson differently. And I think it was because they mixed up the man and zone cover so well that they had so much success. The only issue is the Vikings, I mean, they ran the ball effectively last game, but they fell behind too early. So they couldn't lean on them in the running game like that, like I hope to see with the Lions this week. I hope that the Lions get out ahead, lean on the run game, dominate time of possession, and get out of here with maybe a backdoor cover for the Panthers, honestly. But I just think that there's a really good chance. I don't want to give guarantees, but I cannot see the Panthers winning this game.
We have the teaser leg from Troy. No action from me on this one. Let's move on. Next up for us, Tennessee Titans at Indianapolis Colts, Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis, Indiana. This is a spot where I have a lean that I wanted to talk out with you and the chat before I moved on it, and that is the under. These Titans unders paying my rent, and the Colts are perfect for unders. The Colts have lost both their home games thus far at Lucas Oil, and I still like their football team on the over 6.5 wins with confidence. I like Steichen. I like what I'm seeing from them. And the Titans last week were the perfect buy low spot. Perfect. And, I'm still pretty agitated that I wasn't on them. But it is what it is. Let's get into the line total here. It's sitting at 42.5. It opened up at 41.5, and it went to the over quickly. That's part of the reason why I haven't moved on it right away. Also, this over 42.5 is juiced, which is telling me at least at this point, I don't need to bet this tonight. I mean, this could end up at 43 here. From a side perspective, we have it's sitting at a -1 right now, but I think it's a better look just to talk about the money line, give us a better understanding of what's happened here. The Colts are at -111. They opened up at -113. They got up to -126 yesterday. They're at -126 yesterday afternoon. And then there's been a lot of buyback down to -111. So that's the situation for the money line and the total. A shout out to Jim Jules. Thank you so much for being a member of We Be Pubbing. Respect. Great to have you as part of the squad. Let's talk about the cash flow then for this spot, Titans, Colts. We have 64% of the tickets on the over and just 50% of the cash. From a spread perspective here, 43% of the tickets and 67% of cash on the under. Titans coming off an impressive 27-3 home win over the Bengals. It's the best the offense has looked all year. 94 yards they had in losing in Cleveland. They bounced back, put up 400 yards of offense, 9 of 14 on third down. That's third down and fourth down combined. And they held on to the ball for 34 minutes and 45 seconds. Tannehill went 18 of 25 for 240 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He still fumbled twice. He didn't lose them. He was fortunate. Derrick Henry ran 22 times for 122 yards and a touchdown, caught a pass for 11 yards, and threw a TD pass. And he was held to just 20 yards rushing last week. Of course, he was going to bounce back. Tajay Spears, a lot of people believing in this young man. He ran 5 times for 40 yards, caught 3 passes for 18 yards. Hopkins caught 4 for 63. Nick Westbrook-Akine caught 5 passes for 51 yards and a touchdown. The defense was excellent. Again, though, is the Bengals offense just the issue with us is just the vividness bias with them being so good. They held the Bengals to just 211 yards, held them to 2-9 on third down, 1 unsuccessful trip to the red zone. They bothered Joe Burrow, 3 sacks, 9 quarterback hits. So Tennessee is playing without left guard Peter Skoronski. He's missed his third game recovering from an appendectomy. And they have Treylon Burks out with an injured left knee. So Skoronski was back all week practicing. Well, I guess he was in all the meetings. And he wanted to get on the field, and they were like, can you hold out for it? So he's going to practice this week. But he was in all the meetings. So, he is arguably their best and most consistent offensive lineman. And then Treylon Burks is expected to practice this week. Then Kyle Phillips was moved from the IR to the designated to return list. So that gives 21 days, of course, to put him in. He is expected to play this week. Then you have Nicholas Petit-Frere. He's eligible to return to the lineup this week as well. There's been a change in that suspension. That's a big deal for the Titans. They were down to backups at both left guard and right tackle. So you get Petit-Frere back. You get Skoronski back. Now, this is information that we're going to need over the next couple of days. Obviously, it's Tuesday night right now. The Colts come in off a tough 29-23 overtime loss at home versus the Rams. Anthony Richardson returned from his concussion, 11 to 25 for 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, ran 10 times for 56 yards, did fumble twice, losing one of them. The first quarterback in the Super Bowl era and the first in franchise history to have a TD run in this first 3 games of his career. Drew Ogletree led receivers with 3 catches, 48 yards, and a touchdown. Zach Moss ran 18 times for 70 yards. They got some pressure on Stafford. They sacked him twice. They hit him 9 times, but they were gashed all over the field. Rams put up 467 total yards, 8 more first downs from him. Zaire Franklin, the man is doing everything he possibly can all over the field. Kenny Moore had an interception. And the problem here with this squad is that I was hoping Ryan Kelly would clear concussion protocol. Left tackle Bernard Raymond didn't clear concussion protocol, but the 3-time Pro Bowl centers who we need badly. Alec Pierce, wide receiver, is now in concussion protocol. And then they lose their starting quarterback, Dallas Flowers, torn Achilles, and he's done for the season. So Isaiah McKenzie is going to be the candidate to take over the return duties, and Jalen Jones and Kenny Moore will see extra opportunities in the secondary. But then this came out last night. Kwity Paye is in concussion protocol, developed symptoms on Monday morning. Jelani Woods is still on the IR. And Jonathan Taylor, who's been on the PUP list, is practicing tomorrow. So there's so much information that we need that we don't have yet. Take it away here for us, Troy. Titans, Colts, Lucas Oil.
I'm glad we share the same sentiment on this one, and I should have expected it based on the results of last week. And I was pulling for you, man. I was pulling for that comeback. I wanted it to freaking happen. Unfortunately, it didn't. But hey, this might be the spot to get back on it. My initial thought is obviously to back the Colts. Solid defensive front to stop the run. Titans clearly have been better and more effective at home. Way more comfortable at home, to say the least. Tannehill. And Colts off a loss and the Titans off a blowout win. It's kind of shaping up right away to look like a Colts spot. Tannehill has another week on the top of the chart as it relates to air yards per attempt, which surprises me. The 2 wins for the Titans, Tannehill led the week in air yards per attempt. Actually, I think he was 3rd in week 2. But their 2 wins, he was stretching the field vertically. But those were both home games. This is not a home game. I'm not sure what to make of that yet. I have to do a little bit more digging. And I have to rewatch this. I have to rewatch the Colts game because I didn't turn it on until I realized the Colts are coming back. I was so caught up in my action. So I definitely want to rewatch that game and check out some film. But, the importance of stretching the defense for the Titans, it's evident. That's why you fade QBs. I'm going to name off some QBs who don't stretch the field vertically, or teams that don't. Ritter, Burrow, Bryce Young, Kenny Pickett, all are the bottom of the league. They all fit in that same category. They don't stretch the field vertically. Those are the worst offenses in the NFL and the worst quarterback ratings in the NFL at this point. Derrick Henry rushed for 122 yards. He looked like he was a lot better after getting fucked up for a couple of weeks. 5.5 yards per carry. And you know what that does when you can run the ball effectively, stretch the field vertically, it opens up play action, man. And I'm very heavy. There's a lot of correlation between play action and offensive success. And it's like a 1.0 correlation. Like it's that high. It's so strong of a correlation at this point in the season. I should do some digging on prior seasons to see if that rings true. This game, I think, should be tightly contested. I have a note here that you could probably live bet both sides on the money line at plus money at some point throughout this game. But the Titans, Sammy Coleman brought this up in the chat, and I thought it was fascinating. So I went back and just quick checked. Titans versus mobile quarterbacks. They played, here's 5 that I have listed as certain mobile quarterbacks. The Browns, the Jags, the Eagles, the Bills, the Giants. 0-5 straight up, 1-4 ATS. I'm leaning towards the Colts. Let's check out the injury report when it gets dropped tomorrow, and I'm going to rewatch this game. I'll likely end up with Colts in my pocket.
I expect to be on the under. I agree with DG that it's bettable now, but why move on it if it's just moving towards the over? Usually I would be so concerned that it's moving to the over that I would stay off of it. But my ROI on unders this year is strong. And if you take out week 2, it's incredible. But week 2 happened. The under, and I like your idea with the Colts. I agree with Coyne saying this is a sell high spot on the Tennessee Titans. I agree with your thought process around whether or not Tannehill can air it out on the road like he does at home. Lucas Oil Stadium is going to be rocking. It's going to be loud. And the Colts' inability to win these first 2 games at home does concern me very much. I can't get around it. It really concerns me. So at this point, I know that the Titans are going to get healthier. And I need to know that the Colts are going to be okay. I need to know that Kwity Paye is okay. And he's probably not going to be because these guys are not getting out of concussion protocol quickly. So I'm very concerned. But I do want to move on both the Colts and the under, and I will not be doing that this evening. I want more time to sit with this game. Is there anything you want written down here for leans or action?
Well, yeah, I'm leaning towards the Colts and the under just like you. I have to do some more work and need to see some injury reports. But look what happened to me last week when I looked for some injury reports on Wednesday. Browns report comes out. Watson practices 3 days in a row and sits on Sunday. So what the hell is that going to do me?
And the unders that we have been on together have hit at a very, very high rate as well.
Only one loss.
I'm just waiting for the sample size to be a little bigger, and I'll start talking about it on the show. I feel like it's just, 4 weeks in, I don't want to start really telling everybody if we're on the same total, then join us, until we have a little bit more of a sample size. Let's move on. Next up for us, 1 p.m. Eastern, the New York Giants, 1-3, 1-1 on the road at the Miami Dolphins, 3-1, 1-0 at home. We're at Hard Rock Stadium, Miami Gardens, Florida, 85 Fahrenheit, partly cloudy, 5 miles per hour. Let's take a look at the line history here for this one. We'll move back to the spread, and we'll start there. God, these Giants, how bad did they look? Pinnacle has this at 11.5. Opened up this morning at 10:42 at 11.5. There was an initial move immediately towards the Giants. This got juiced up to minus 116 a couple different times today. It is juiced. It has moved 5 cents in their favor at this 11.5. Let's get over to the total for this one. It's sitting at 50 right now. It opened at 50 as a pick'em. There's been a 5 cent move to the under at 50. Let's get into the cash flow for this spot. We have 92% of the tickets and 96% of the cash on the Miami Dolphins. There's a 0% chance I will join people on that. And I know that they're coming off a loss and they're upset, but it's just those are numbers that really concern me. And now if we see this line move to 13, then you can sit there and be comfortable with where you got your number at 10.5. But it's just I don't want to be with 96% of 92 and 96 respectively. 68% of the tickets and 92% cash on the over. I don't want that. And Let's break it down. Giants coming off a disaster on a short week. They looked awful in their 24-3 loss at home to the Seahawks. Danny Dimes, 27 of 34 for 203 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. One of those interceptions was returned 97 yards for a TD by Devin Witherspoon. He ran 10 times for 66 yards. He fumbled twice. He did only lose one of them. Badly missing Saquon Barkley. Breda ran 14 times for 30 yards. Led receivers catching 5 passes for 48 yards. Where were their skill players on the outside? Nowhere to be found, and maybe that's not their fault. It's Danny Dimes' fault. Wan'Dale Robinson caught 5 for 40. They held the ball for 36 minutes of that game. They held the ball for 36 minutes and only gained 248 total yards. That's very difficult to do. Their lone trip to the red zone ended up with 7 points for the Seahawks on that pick 6. Their offensive line was beyond atrocious. Hearing that Andrew Thomas wasn't in, I probably should have just got out of the bed immediately. So that's 3 straight games that Andrew Thomas has missed with a hamstring injury. Danny Dimes never had any time. Seahawks finished with 11 sacks and 14 quarterback hits. Come on. The defense tried to keep them in it. They held the Seahawks at just 281 yards, held them to 3 of 14 combined on 3rd and 4th down. Seahawks finished just 2 of 4 in the red zone. They couldn't get enough pressure on Geno. 2 sacks, 3 quarterback hits. And their rookie center, John Michael Schmidt's shoulder injury, and tight end backup Daniel Bellinger left the game in the first half with a knee injury. We'll get the update tomorrow. After putting up 70 points in week 3 against the Broncos at home, the Dolphins went up to Orchard Park, New York, and lost 48-20 to the Bills. So, look, I get it. This would be somewhat of a buy low spot, but I still see a bias with the way everybody's talking about the Dolphins, because that 70-point game is very close to everybody's memory. Tua was 25 for 35 for 282 yards, touchdown and a pick. They were just 3 of 10 on 3rd down. They were 0-3 on 4th. The Bills sacked 2 of 4 times. Dolphins had allowed just 1 sack first 3. Tyreek Hill was held to 3 catches for 58 yards. What can you say about Devon Achane? I mean, he's just a monster. 8 carries. It took 8 carries to get to 101 yards and 2 touchdowns. 4th NFL rookie to combine for 6 touchdowns in consecutive games. First since 2012 with Doug Martin. The defense looked awful. I mean, the Bills scored on 8 of their first 9 possessions. That's not including the kneel down at halftime. They were 5 of 6 in the red zone, the Bills. The defense was unable to get enough pressure. I mean, Josh Allen could do whatever he wanted. Andrew Van Ginkel had 2 sacks. The rest of the team had 0 sacks and just 1 quarterback hit. And Teron Armstead is hurt, man. Did you see him limping off the field all banged up? But they've been able to protect until this last game. They've been able to protect to a fine. Jalen Phillips dealing with an oblique injury. He did not play. This is a wild one, and I don't see it as cut and dry like 92% of the public do. Take it away for us here, Troy. Giants, Dolphins.
Yeah, isn't this game so hard not to be biased after what we just seen last night? Jesus Christ. Without the scripted plays in the first 2 series of the game, they just had a complete inability to execute any type of offense. And it reminded me exactly of what we seen in week 1. We watched it live, Jim. We watched Cowboys, Giants. We watched the Giants march right down the field, get in field goal range, get a 4th and short, QB sneak it, get stopped, and then fall apart from there. It's just, I couldn't help but think about that game as I'm watching this game. And I think the announcer even talked about it too. I was like, geez, this reminds me of Cowboys. The announcer starts talking about it. I'm like, this is the Matrix telling me I'm fucked. Sure enough, it's exactly what I was. And then I still decided still decided to lie bet the Giants. It was brilliant. But yeah, sure, Daniel Jones looked awful. There's no doubt about it, but no one's freaking helping him. His offensive line couldn't stop a nosebleed. I mean, they literally were not doing anything out there. Jones was sacked 11 times, 2.8 air yards per attempt. I mean, he looks so uncomfortable in the pocket. It's sickening. And he's going to have PTSD after that last game. You can't forget, you can't forget that, what happened. I mean, he snapped the ball. When he touched his hands, he was done already. His left tackle was getting beat most of the time, and he had to either scramble for his life or take the sack, which he did 11 damn times. If it wasn't for the Giants' pass rush, the Giants, they would be the last team in my power rankings. That's 100% true. I knew regression was going to come for this team. I just didn't think it would.
Looks like we might have lost Troy here for a second. Let's pull him out and see if we can get him back in. But I know what he was going to say there. He said he didn't think it would be this dramatic. I mean, my goodness. Who would have thought they'd be this horrible? So for those of you who want to go up against the public, which is a situation that I understand, I would wait. The public's going to keep hammering this Dolphin spot. And for those of you that like the under, like Sky Dragon, I get it. And Sky Dragon doesn't just like the under. He says that he loves the under. He says he gets Miami can score 40, but the Giants aren't an over team. They struggle to do anything on offense. If Miami is a big lead, the spread suggests they have no reason to run up the score. I agree with all of that. Let's get Troy back in action here. But Troy, I finished that sentence for you when you were saying that you had no idea it'd be this dramatic. I mean, who would have thought it'd be this extreme? I wasn't sure which word you used, but I knew exactly what you were talking about. So I was just saying while you were gone that if you want the Giants, if you want to go up against the public, which I get, wait, because everybody and their mom is going to be on the Dolphins. And then I agree with the under. I really do.
Yeah, and I think that this Dolphins team, this defense specifically, is a little bit untested. I mean, look what happened against the Bills. The Broncos had some success versus them. The Chargers destroyed that defense, and the Patriots are the Patriots. They're not very good, so can't expect much out of them. The problem is, I want to look towards the Giants. It's just so hard. They got rookie cornerbacks that are going to be guarding the best receivers in the NFL. And this Miami team, I just love their offensive scheme. McDaniel, I mean, what he's doing is awesome. RPO on 20% of dropbacks, play action on 17% of dropbacks. And he has this short motion. I call it a short motion where he motions a slot receiver to the outside. And he's the pioneer. He's a pioneer for real, because you never seen that. Now you see all teams using that after he put that on display in weeks 1 and 2. I have no action in this game.
I'm going to be looking very closely at the under. I love the idea of the under. I don't want to get it too early. So, I'm going to be, but I love the idea here. So let's keep rolling. Next up for us, 1 p.m. Eastern, New Orleans Saints 2-2, 1-1 on the road at the New England Patriots 1-3, 0-2 at home at Gillette Stadium in Foxborough, Massachusetts. 59 Fahrenheit, partly cloudy, 12 miles per hour. Let's get right into the line history here. This is another one where the money line is probably the best way to get a feel for the movement here. So let's go to that and head over to Penny and see what they've done. Of course, this is since the game's ended. You have the Patriots right now at minus 119. They opened up at minus 134. It's a pretty big move towards the Saints. Saints opened up at plus 119 and get to plus 106. It was a pretty wild week last week where so many teams got destroyed. I kept writing in my notes, the same sort of sentiment for these teams. I kept seeing it felt like I was having deja vu because so many of these teams were atrocious. I kept using words like that. So many teams were so horrible. And the Patriots, I mean, this is the worst. They're coming off the worst loss in the 29-year career of Bill Belichick. From a total scenario, this is sitting at 40.5. It opened up at 39.5. The first move was towards the under. So this gets down to 38.5. And now it's bet up to 40.5. So we have U-shaped movement, which is pretty wild. It's pretty wild for that. So let's get over to the cash flow for this one. 75% of the tickets and 90% of the cash is on the under. That makes sense to me. But this has moved towards the over, and that will keep me off. From a spread perspective, you have 41% of the tickets and 66% of the cash on the Patriots. The line's moving towards the Saints. From a money line perspective, you have 73% of the tickets and 62% of the cash on the Patriots. Again, the line's moving towards the Saints. New Orleans comes in off a disastrous performance, losing 26-9 at home to the Bucs. We were on it with confidence on Tuesday. We bet it on Tuesday. Come Sunday, I was very concerned. I mean, this was sitting at 5. What have I done? But we cashed both the side and you cashed the money line as well. And we also cashed the under very easily. It was a very profitable spot. Derek Carr played despite a shoulder injury, and he played poorly. 23 of 37 for just 127 yards, 23 completions for 127 yards, and lost a fumble. They finished with just 197 total yards. The Buccaneers completely shut down Chris Olave. 1 catch for 4 yards, despite being targeted 6 times. Now, I know there was a couple spots where Carr just missed them. Michael Thomas led receivers with 4 catches for 53 yards. Alvin Kamara returns from his 3-game suspension, and he had such an interesting day. He runs 11 times for 51 yards. I don't remember seeing a stat line like this. He caught 13 passes for 33 yards, 2.5 yards per completion or per reception, I should say. That's just wild. The Saints could get no pressure on the Bucs. 1 sack, 3 quarterback hits. This Bucs offense that's so weak put up 353 total yards, went 8 of 15 on third down. They also allowed the Bucs to go 3 of 4 in the red zone. Isaac Yadam had 6 tackles and caught an interception. Tight end Juwan Johnson was active but didn't play because of a pregame calf injury. And Andres Pete is in concussion protocol. And we've been here with Andres Pete. We've been in this concussion protocol with him, and it's a danger now. I do not think he'll be back this week. Patriots come in off a horrific 38-3 loss at Dallas. As I said, the worst loss in Belichick's 29-year history as a head coach. 24 of those years with the Patriots. Mac Jones was awful. Finished 12-21 for just 150 yards. No touchdowns, 2 picks. He also lost the fumble. Zappi replaced him late, went 4-9 for 57 yards. Belichick has already given Jones the vote of confidence, saying he'll be the starter this week. The offense was just a disaster. 10 first downs. 4 of 15 on third and fourth downs combined. They made just 1 attempt within the red zone and failed. Hunter Henry led receivers with 4 catches for 51 yards. The Patriots could get nothing on the ground. Ramondre Stevenson, Zeke, and Mac Jones combined to carry the ball 23 times for 53 yards. The defense got gashed all over the field. They did get some pressure on Dak, 3 sacks, 7 quarterback hits, but it was nowhere near enough. And not only was it a disastrous loss, but the Patriots lose 2 extremely important starters on defense. Matthew Judon, they're not announcing it to be season ending, but they're calling it potentially season ending, but we all think it's season ending. Lower bicep tendon tear. And then, of course, this stuff, after being named the defensive rookie of the month last week, first round pick Christian Gonzalez dislocates his shoulder and he's going to be out multiple weeks. Just sucks. So they have huge problems in their secondary. Jonathan Jones has missed 3 straight games. He's a starter because of an ankle injury. Both Marcus and Jack Jones are on the IR. Now, Jack Jones could be reactivated, but I looked into that, and they do not think he's going to be coming back to this 53-man roster immediately. So when you get to that side of things, am I going to sit here and expect a bounce back from the Patriots, who are missing Judon, who is, possibly the most. I mean, this guy could have been Defensive Player of the Year. There was times I thought he was going to be Defensive Player of the Year last year. The more I talk about it, the more I think that the Saints must be bet. But I got to hear you guys and listen to the comments and hear you break it down. So break it down, Troy. Gillette Stadium in Foxborough, Saints, Patriots.
Yeah, both these teams vastly underperforming so far this season. Patriots offense looked completely dead last week. Mac Jones looked exactly as bad as advertised, which I was wrong about in terms. Well, let's give him a break. I want to pump the brakes on that because let's look at who he played. The Cowboys, the Eagles, the Jets, and the Dolphins. That's 3 of 4 top defenses in the NFL. So take that for what it is. I kind of put some value into that, but not very much at this point. How about these Joneses fucking us, or me specifically, with Daniel Jones, Mac Jones, old friend of mine, fuck me, Bobby Jones. So these Jones, I just don't get along. Like the Matrix, Al Servik's going to like that. The Matrix me and Joneses, we don't mesh well. But how do you help a struggling offense, a struggling quarterback, and a struggling offensive line? You run play action. It allows you it makes it easier to pass block. It allows the quarterback to see downfield, and it keeps the secondary honest. But we only seen 11 attempts from the Patriots in play action passes this season. That's 31st in the NFL. To me, that's unacceptable. We already talked about the quarterbacks at the bottom of the list. The worst offenses in the league don't run play action. And here's Mac Jones and the Patriots not running play action. All the high hopes I had for the offensive coordinator to change things, it looks completely unchanged. It looks the exact same as it has in the past. Then you look at the Saints, and let's just call it what it is. Derek Carr is not that guy. Bucs got outgained by over 150 yards. They're 0 for 2 in the red zone. That's just so typical of Derek Carr. They turned the ball over, and Derek Carr averaged 1.4 air yards per attempt last week. Whew, that is terrible. Their defense is ranked 5th overall, and I think that's vastly overrated too. Titans, Panthers, Packers, Bucs, all below average offenses. So despite having this really solid, good defense, they haven't really played any stiff competition at this point. So what does all this mean? I think you're right, Jimmy. I think it's Saints or nothing. It's so hard for me to do that, though, because I just took the L with the Patriots. Originally, when I was looking at this game, I was like, you know what? There's 3 games that this has already happened to me on. I was 1 week off. The Commanders, the Lions, and the Browns. There's all a week where I didn't bet that team after betting and losing with them. Didn't bet them the following week, and I paid the price because it's just a tough game, man. It's just so hard for me to understand what's going on with Derek Carr. He wasn't supposed to play in that game. This quarterback manipulation starting to happen in the NFL. I don't know what to do with it, but Derek Carr definitely looks like he's injured. He can't make the throws, obviously. 1.4 air yards per attempt. I mean, it's just the numbers speak for themselves. So I can't bet this game. I probably shouldn't bet this game.
I understand everybody thinking that Belichick and the Patriots will bounce back at home. But how can you possibly bounce back when you lose your star rookie cornerback and your MVP of your defense?
The best players on your team.
So what we're just supposed to say is because of Bill Belichick? Well, hasn't that aura around him left? I think that from every angle here, the Saints are a better football team than the Patriots. Now, with no Gonzalez and no Judon. Not before kickoff last week. Look, we were so heavy on the Bucks, but look, Olave coming off 1 catch for 4 yards, Kamara needing to get a game under his belt.
But who do we get at quarterback? It's probably gonna be Carr, right?
I tell you, I'm only comfortable when I see number 7 up there, and I want Taysom Hill.
Oh, I agree.
But look, and here's Preston. He is a Saints fan through and through. Says, I refuse to watch the Saints anymore with Carr behind center. The defense can only do so much. Winston can at least throw it down the field. Chris Mack says backwoods, and I get that sentiment, but I want the Saints, and I want the Saints before it moves too much. And
yeah, but I mean, if Carr gets ruled out, which they should, I mean, if you watch that game, he couldn't make a throw downfield. He missed every throw he made downfield, and his average air yards per attempt, like the numbers are saying he's hurt. When you visually watch it, you see that he's not right. If he's on the bench, we might get a better line, and I would rather be behind one of those backup quarterbacks. I mean, definitely probably won't get Taysom Hill, but I would like it.
I don't know if the line changes. Do you really think we get a better line without Carr after what we saw? 23 passes for 127 yards? Everybody on the saying under here, look, I understand it, but it's a very low total. The initial move was towards the under. The under is being hammered, and it's gone up a point. And it's gone up 2 points since it initially dropped to 38.5. So, yeah, okay. Well, maybe I need more time, and I get it because it's hard to back the Saints or it's hard to fade an angry Belichick. But I think that stigma around him is gone. So I want the Saints. Do I have the balls to bet them tonight? Do I need to sit here and think about it longer? Do I need to message you guys and talk about it longer? I'm not sure. But I want the Saints. I don't want the under. I would love to get a chance to watch the Patriots without Gonzalez and Judon in the lineup. I mean, I hate seeing Christian Gonzalez go down. You know, it's tough being a rookie corner, and he was getting better every single time.
And you know what they did the very next play? They attacked exactly who he'd be on in CD Lamb and threw it for 30 yards for a touchdown. I was like, it's over.
I think I move on the Saints, man. I think I move on the Saints. I think I do. Okay.
Press the button.
Yeah, and that's key and difficult. Let's move on. 1 p.m. Eastern, Baltimore Ravens 3-1, 2-0 on the road at Pittsburgh Steelers 2-2, 1-1 at home. We're at Acrisure Stadium in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. 50 Fahrenheit, partly cloudy, 13 miles per hour. It's been very beautiful, very hot, perfect weather, and that's going to start changing. Starts changing this weekend, and we'll see if it continues to change. It's going to start getting cooler. The total here has dropped to 37.5 over at Penny. This total opened up at 40. I mean, compare this total to the one with New Orleans and New England. I mean, this is the kind of low total that you want to be all over, but it's dropped heavily down to 37.5 at Pinnacle. A 2.5 point move to a very low under is eye-opening. And I do not think, and Alceric's saying Trubisky, I do not think it's going to be Trubisky, but we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that. It's not that we'll get into it, but judging by this 3.5 point, so it's sitting at 3.5 right now. Baltimore minus 3.5 is juiced. This opened up at 4 and dropped to 3. Oh, actually, the first thing it moved to 4.5. Wow, I didn't realize that. So it opened up at 4, moved to 4.5, and then there was the 3.5. And I think that 3.5 is because, and I believe I have some comments here in my notes, but it's because it sounds like we're going to see Pickett back in. But we'll talk about all of this here right now. Great to see you, Jacqueline. Thank you for joining us. So, let's go over to the cash flow for the Steelers spot. 91% of the tickets and 95% of the cash on the Ravens. That's on the money line. My fault. Let me move to all markets here. I forgot we had the money line up for that one. So for the spread, we have 71% of the tickets and 79% of the cash on the Steelers. And it's moved to 3.5. That's pretty fascinating. And I think that's telling us that Pickett will be in. 90% of the tickets on the under. We don't have a cash flow at this point. So Ravens coming off a dominant 28-3 victory at Cleveland. No Deshaun Watson due to injury. Dorian Thompson-Robinson had little hope in the loss. Lamar Jackson was 15-19 for 186 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also ran 9 times for 27 yards and 2 touchdowns. He did fumble twice, losing one of them. Mark Andrews, it looks like he's healthy and ready to rock. Caught 5 passes for 80 yards, 2 touchdowns. Zay Flowers caught 3 for 56. 6 different rushers were given the opportunity to move the ball on the ground, led by Gus Edwards, who ran 15 times for 48 yards. As a group, they ran 33 times for 31 yards. Now, they don't have a lot of skill in that group, but they're going to keep running and running and running. The defense completely shut down the Browns, held the Browns to 166 total yards. The Ravens had 4 sacks, 8 quarterback hits, and picked off DTR 3 times. And look at who they were missing. No Odell Beckham Jr., no Rashad Bateman, no Ronnie Stanley, no Adefowa, no David Ojabo, no Marlon Humphreys, and no Marcus Williams. So there were 2 wide receivers, a left tackle, 2 linebackers, a cornerback, and a safety. Then they lose right tackle Morgan Moses to a shoulder injury, and they lose safety Dora Worley to a shoulder injury as well. They're a very, very beat-up football team playing against a team that's mentally beat up. But they also lost players that we'll go over. Steelers coming off that ugly 36 loss at Houston. Kenny Pickett goes down with a knee injury. I think the reason why it's gone to 3.5 is because Tomlin came out and said it's just a bone bruise. Says he's going to participate in practice. And, of course, Trubisky would be the next man up. But I think he's going to play. Against the Texans, Steelers were outgained 451 to 225 and got just 12 first downs. What the hell has happened to this offense? When we came into the year, you had Pickens and Calvin Austin. You had these 2 deep threats. You had a Pro Bowler and Allen Robinson in the slot. You have Kenny Pickett, who is going to be better this year. What the hell happened? He was 15 to 23 for 114 yards and an interception. Trubisky came in with 3 of 5, 18 yards. Najee Harris ran 14 times for 71 yards, caught a pass for 32 yards. He caught 1 pass for 32 yards, Najee Harris, and that led all receivers. Unbelievable. And they get their bye week next week. So here they go. They have 1 week. They're at home, and they're 2-2. And they have their bye week next week. The defense looked bad. They could get no pressure. 0 sacks. Allowed the Texans about 451 yards. So left tackle Dan Moore Jr., knee sprain. He's out. Now, guard James Daniel said he is looking much better with his groin injury. He'll participate at some level. We'll let and this is quote unquote, we'll let the amount of that participation and the quality of that participation be our guide in terms of his game day availability. Pat Freiermuth suffered a hamstring injury. He's just listed as doubtful, but he's going to be out for 2 to 3 weeks. Defensive tackle DeMarvin Leal, he's in concussion protocol. And their punter Presley Harvin is dealing with a hamstring that held him out for week 4, and he's going to be assessed later in the week, probably unavailable. So many moving parts in this one. My goodness. Take it away for us, Troy. Can you enlighten us? Can we find some guidance here with Ravens Steelers in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania?
You look at this line, you got a divisional home dog, and that divisional home dog is Tomlin. And it's hard for me to talk about this because I feel like the perception is going to be that I'm biased because I think I faded the Ravens every week too, unsuccessfully so far this year. It's been an unprofitable proposition for me so far. But, yeah, the Ravens went up against a quarterback last year that was awful. He wasn't ready for the NFL. 2.3 air yards per attempt. I just think that this Ravens team is overrated defensively. I think there's people way too high on this Ravens defense. I mean, who they played? The Bengals, the Colts, the Texans with Stroud in his first start, Dorian Thompson or whatever. I don't even know his name anymore. I forgot it because he's so forgettable. He's his first game in the NFL, first start. I'm still not impressed with what I've seen from the Ravens at this point. They did look. I should say this too, but they do get Kenny Pickett this week, who falls right into the line with low air yards per attempt and an offense that's just stagnant at the very best. Stagnant's probably giving him a little bit too much credit, to be honest. I'm kind of hoping that they crush the Steelers this week, and I'm hoping that the Texans lose so that I could fade the shit out of them next week. I'm not a believer in Lamar Jackson. I still think he needs to prove me wrong. He only had to throw 19 passes to get the job done against the Browns. What I was impressed with, though, was the run design and the run scheme, because it was effective. You could tell they took advantage with the RPO, or it's more of a read option, run with Lamar and whoever was in the backfield. But it was very impressive, man. Monken had some shit cooked up for it, and they were successful on the ground. I was surprised to see it, but it was definitely true that Monken came correct with this scheme. The main point about the Ravens at this point is that their defense is unproven. But how proven do they need to be when they're going up against the Steelers, right? It's just so hard to get behind a Steelers team. Only 4 passes of 10-plus yards. I mean, what the hell are we doing? Offensive line is grading out as the worst in the league, especially in the pass blocking. And defensively, they can't cover anybody in the secondary. That's just not a good mix. Despite a great pass rush, they're still terrible in the secondary, and not one of their players in the secondary graded in the top 50. And that just came as a huge surprise. I'm sorry, not in the secondary, they're cornerbacks, nobody in the top 50. This is a game where I'm only looking towards the Steelers. I'm not sure if I'll get there. But, yeah, it's a divisional home dog with Tomlin or nothing.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to get there. Now, the only problem that I foresee here is that Baltimore gives you how many of these guys come back. And with Baltimore at 3-1 right now, I don't know if there's a rush to get them back. And, this is one of those spots that's a little nerve-wracking. You want to wait for more injury information. But I think the injury information is going to be really bad for Baltimore. I think it's going to be much better for Pittsburgh. And I think this ends at 3. And we've talked throughout this show already, and we're only 4 weeks in, about what Tomlin's numbers are as a home dog or as within 3 points. And I know this is at 3.5 or 4 right now, so that doesn't fall in. But their numbers are spectacular.
Jimmy, you moving on this is probably gonna push me over the edge, man.
You know what? This is right in my wheelhouse. This is right where I want to be. The more I talk about it. Now, the problem is that 71% of the tickets, 78% of cash are on the Steelers. That surprises me. It really surprises me. I was thinking that everybody was going to be, on the Ravens here. So that's the only, thing that makes me uncomfortable. But
no, they're not betting this. The public's coming in with those money line parlays. They're teasing, a team through an insignificant number. Because that money line cash flow, 91-93 Baltimore.
Yeah.
But I see what you're saying, though. You're right, though. It's the spread we're looking at. That's where the sharp action is going to be at this point. Well, hey.
I'm there. And I know that this is one of those bets that's just going to take a ton of heat, but this is just the Steelers after getting embarrassed on the road, coming home against a division rival that just beat up on the Browns, who didn't have their quarterback. This is I know we're going to see so many people on the Ravens. That's my expectation. But I bet now we'll know if this ends up at 3, I'm going to get paid. That's my thought. So,
are you going to wait for injury reports? Or are you moving tonight?
I think I'm moving tonight. I'm going to look at, because there's 3 different options for me where to bet this, and I'm going to see if there's a 4 available, and I'm moving on this tonight. Steelers, let's go. Let's fucking go. All right, we move on. I'm not touching that total at 37.5 though, although I get it. but it's just moved too far. 4:05 p.m. Eastern. Next up for us, we're in afternoon action now. Philadelphia Eagles 4-0, 2-0 on the road at the Los Angeles Rams 2-2, 0-1 at home. Londo, I'm with you, my guy. Let's get it. SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, California. Let's take a look at the line history here in this one and get rolling. Eagles, Rams. This is sitting right now with the Rams at home. It's +4. That's where it opened, +4. It did move to 5. So it moved to 5 about 4 hours after it dropped, and then it went right back to 4. That's the only real movement. So it's pretty much exactly where it opened at this point. Let's move over to the total here for this one. The total in this one is sitting at 50.5. Seems pretty high for a Rams game. Opened up at 49.5 and then moved to 50.5. This is interesting. And look at this. Ron Crawford. Spreadsheet play of the day is in. It is the Rams +4.5. Thank you for sharing that with us, Ron. My guy. Copy and paste that right now. The line is moving in the Rams direction. Al Cervic says he's on the Rams blind. So Sky Dragon says, I don't really get the oversteam. I would be playing the under. Well, that's what I wanted to hear, DG. So because that was my very first thought. Now, I'll need to talk it out first, and we'll see. So let's go. Let's go over to the cash flow for this spot. We have, get over here. We have 56% of the tickets and 66% of the cash on the Eagles, and the line is moving towards the Rams. We have 82% of the tickets and 87% of the cash on the over. So the Eagles have started the season 4-0. And they're getting a lot of negativity. 4-0, it's the first time they've had consecutive seasons 4-0 since 1992-93. There are only 2 4-0 teams left. Eagles came in off the much tighter than expected 34-31 overtime win at home over the Commanders. Jalen Hurts was 25 of 37 for 319 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He also ran 9 times for 34 yards. A.J. Brown had a monster game. 14 catches for 175 yards, 2 touchdowns. Devonta Smith, 7 for 78. DeAndre Swift, 14 carries for 56 yards, touchdown, caught 4 for 23. Nicholas Morrow, 11 tackles and 3 sacks. It's pretty wild for those of you who've watched him for a long time because in his first 81 games in the NFL, he had 4 sacks. So he had 3 sacks on Sunday. The defense got pressure on Howell, 5 sacks, 9 quarterback hits, but it looked vulnerable. Washington was able to make big plays when they needed to. Commanders finished 4 of 5 in the red zone and were 8 of 17 on third down, 2 of 2 on fourth down. Their guard here, Cam Jurgens, suffered a foot injury. He's unlikely to be available this week. He was seen leaving in a walking boot. He's listed as week to week. So Jurgens was the one that had come in to replace Kelsey. And then Sua Opeta entered the game for Jurgens, and he's going to take over at right guard if Jurgens can't go. And it's Opeta's job to block Aaron Donald. So it's a really important thing to see if Jurgens is good or if you're going to trust Opeta to do the job. It's a very key position battle. The Eagles' injuries have been mounting. So what up, T-Mac? Nice to see you, man. So, it all started with Zach McPherson, tore his Achilles. He was the backup slot cornerback, special team star. So that was in the summer. Then season opener, they lose Nakobe Dean, foot injury. He's on the IR and still needs to sit out 2 more games before he can return. Then week 2 was the heartbreaker. Avonte Maddox gone for the season. They lose Bradbury and Reed Blankenship in that game. Now, Bradbury and Blankenship only missed 1 game. Then Justin Evans suffers the neck injury. Sidney Brown suffers the hamstring tweak. Both safeties were not there in Sunday's win over the Commanders. Isn't it noticeable now that this defense they're battling injuries. They just don't look as strong. They don't look as tough. Now, I don't want to fade the Eagles after they look bad. The Rams continue to impress. They're coming off a 29-23 overtime victory at Indianapolis. They outgained them 467 to 329. They're up 23-0 in the third quarter before the Colts mounted the comeback. Stafford looks hurt. He's banged up. I don't know if you watched how banged up he is, how you could really trust him being good to go here. I'm sure he's going to play, but we know what he looks like when he can't when he's got no mobility. 27 to 40 for 319 yards, touchdown, and an interception. Puka Nacua continued his incredible start. 9 passes for 163 yards, 39 receptions, 501 yards through the first 4 games of any for any player in NFL history. First 4 games of any player in NFL history. So he is not being stopped right now. And then Tyler Higbee is getting open now because people are having to worry about Nacua. Higbee, 5 catches for 64 yards. Kyron Williams ran 25 times for 103 yards. He's rolling right now. So now you have Kyron Williams running and Ronnie Rivers right behind them. They're both looking very good. The defense shut out the Colts in the first half, but looked vulnerable in the second. They still held the Colts to just 3 of 10 on third down and 2 trips to the red zone. The Colts catched them both. The red zone defense is a problem. And Alaric Jackson was inactive with the hamstring injury, and they need him back on this offensive line. Take it away for us here. Break it down for us here. Eagles, Rams. Troy, floor is yours.
I want to be on the Rams when I first started looking at this game, but I can't. Like you said, I mean, the toughest part for me to get past right now is Stafford. What's his status like? How healthy is he going to be? Because we've seen this Eagles secondary specifically not looking like what we remember out of the Eagles from last year. I think that's. I mean, everything's adding up for the Rams to be able to take advantage of it. They got Kupp coming back. I think Puka is an all-star receiver. The guy's stamina is off the charts. You can see this guy make 5 catches in 7 plays, and every catch looks the exact same intensity. This guy is really good. Now you add Kupp back to the lineup. It's just more to defend. It makes it harder on the secondary. But can Stafford deliver? That's my question right now. And the Eagles barely escape at home as huge favorites. Oh, man, it's just a tough spot. The Rams' strength is obviously their defensive line and ability to rush the passer, but with Aaron Donald leading the charge. But the Eagles, in theory, should be able to neutralize that with their running game, their ability to run the ball, which I still think they don't do enough. And I think they will as the season progresses, but we haven't seen that yet. Oh, man, this is a tough one for me because, some of these, I'm just confused a little bit at how, PFF is ranking a lot of these positional groups because they're ranked, they have some low rankings, especially on the defensive side. Coverage, 31st. Pass block is 30th, yet Stafford's pretty good and is able to pass out of the pocket. So it's just a little bit confusing to me still, but this fits the profile of a game I want to bet. At FanDuel, this game opened at 6. Some other public books, 6.5. I know Pinnacle opened it at 4. That leaves me with no sample to work with. So I looked in the database, and these lines that drop at FanDuel from 6 down to 4, 4.5. Home team is 6-2 ATS, 5-3 straight up on the money line. So that had me leaning towards the Rams heavily, but I just don't know because we don't know about Stafford.
And, you guys don't need to back me up in the chat when, Jack Cal says, I don't want to hear about what happened last week because I want cappers like Jack Cal who don't care about last week. That's how we make money is because of gamblers like Jack Cal who doesn't want to talk about how banged up Stafford looked last week. What's happening now with Ronnie Rivers stepping up to help Kyron Williams and things of this nature. But thank you for backing me up, but let him say whatever he wants. The people who don't care about what happened last week don't realize how much it affects this week. And it's great. So I want him thinking exactly the way he is because that's how we get better numbers on games. Here, I want the Eagles after they look bad. The question is, do you want them this banged up? And then at this point, do we want Justin Evans back? Do we want Sidney Brown back? Because God, with Maddox out now, I mean Bradbury and Blankenship are doing such enormous amount of work. So, at this point, I think this total is too high. I just don't think that the Rams. One of the things about Puka and others and this Rams offense is they're moving the chains. They're moving the chains and they're keeping the opposition off the field. And when push comes to shove, we saw what the Colts did to them. And I think the Eagles are more than capable when push comes to shove in the most important spots to do the exact same thing. So At this point here, I don't want the Rams. I don't want the Rams after the Eagles look bad. I fear the Eagles enormously. And if you listen to people's sentiment about them right now, it's very negative. This is a very good football team that's dealing with injuries and playing sloppy and making some bad decisions. But there's certainly a team that I want to fade after they look good, not after they look bad. And they just look bad. And they're being hammered in the media right now with the way their defense looked.
And that's a good point, man. Both these teams barely escaped with a win. I mean, even, the Rams and the Eagles. Now, the Rams were a pick 'em. The Eagles were a massive favorite, and they're getting all this heat. I think that's a really good point, Jimmy. And I'm definitely not moving on the Rams at this point, based on what I'm hearing and based on how I perceive Stafford's health to be.
Yeah, he looked really banged up there. But the under is in play. I think the under is very, very much in play. I'm not sure if I move on it tonight, but I will be studying it very closely. Let's move on. Next up for us is State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona. Cincinnati Bengals 1-3, 0-2 on the road at the Cardinals 1-3, 1-1 at home. Let's get into the line history here for this Cardinals spot. We are sitting with a total at 45.5. This opened up at 42.5. We have a 3-point move towards the over. A big move towards the over. Let's get into the spread here for this one. Another afternoon start. And we're sitting here with Arizona +3 and -106. This opened up with Arizona +4.5 and has dropped to +3. This one, there are so many biases involved because you have the vividness bias and then you have the recency bias. And they are intersecting here with the Bengals because the vividness bias says, oh, Burrow and Jamar, you trust this offense, they're going to get it together. The recency bias says they're just a bad football team. And my first thought when I saw the Bengals at this number, I was like, oh, God, I got to bet Bengals. It was just jumped out, and I stopped myself. No. Let's just regroup and break it down. Birdie says he's got the Cards +5, says he'll be betting the Bengals money line and some alts. Joe says he's been fading Cincy all year. Harold Williams says Bengals and auto fade. So let's just take a look at the cash flow here for this Bengals spot. We have 43% of the tickets and 77% of cash on the Cardinals. That's clearly sharp money. It's moved from 4.5. Birdie said he got the 5. Then we have 65% of the tickets and 90% cash on the under, and it's gone up 3 points. The Bengals coming off a disastrous performance in a 27-3 loss at Tennessee. I mean, just a horrible performance. We're 4 games into the season. The Bengals don't have a touchdown in the first half of a game yet. 211 total yards and 109 through the air. They were 2-9 on third down, 0-1 on fourth down, 1 appearance in red zone that failed. Joe Burrow throws for 165 yards. I mean, what's going on here? Jamar Chase still caught 7 passes for 73 yards, but no other receiver caught for more than 26 yards. Joe Mixon ran 14 times for 67 yards, caught a pass for 9. The defense got gashed for 400 yards. This was against the Titan offense that managed just 94 yards last week in Cleveland. The Titans went 9 of 14 on third or fourth down. I mean, they managed to get some pressure on Tannehill, who's a statue back there, and 3 sacks, 8 quarterback hits. But T. Higgins did not play in the second half because of injured ribs. And now they're starting cornerback Cam Taylor-Britt's in concussion protocol. And what percentage of players do we see coming out of concussion protocol this year? Very low number are getting out in that first week. Cards come in off a very difficult 35-16 loss against the powerhouse Niners in Santa Clara. They put up yards, a lot of yards, but they just couldn't stop the Niners. I mean, that's just a state of how good the Niners are right now. Joshua Dobbs, this guy looks very good, man. 28 for 41, 265 yards, 2 touchdowns, ran 12 times for 48 yards. Michael Wilson looks like a great draft pick out of Stanford. 7 catches, 76 yards, 2 touchdowns. Marquise Brown caught 7 for 96. James Conner's running the ball nice. 23 first downs against the Niners. 8 of 15 on third or fourth. I mean, that's nice numbers, but they were incapable of getting stops. Well, maybe they don't need to worry about getting stops here. 49ers had 30 first downs. Listen to what the 49ers did in that game. They were just 3 of 5 on third down. Isn't that crazy for a team that got 30 first downs? So maybe this is the spot where the Bengals can get right. The Niners were 5 of 5 in the red zone. Then you have offensive lineman Dennis Daly and linebacker Myjah Sanders, who are both eligible to be designated to return to practice and could be activated. They've missed a minimum of 4 weeks. Daly suffered an ankle injury in the preseason finale. Sanders fractured his hand at the start of training camp. It's very important if they can get these guys back because they're not a deep team with a ton of depth. And Kyler Murray is eligible to be activated off the PUP, but that's not going to happen. Take it away for us here, Troy. State Farm Stadium, Bengals Cards. Take it away.
I remember Monday morning I was looking at this game. In Chicagoland area, there's hella traffic anywhere you go in the morning. So I'm sitting in fucking bumper to bumper traffic, looking at the odds and watching this line drop in front of my face. I opened up the app. It was at 6 in front of my eyes. The shit dropped to 5.5. I put it down, get to work. First thing I do is pop it open. It's down to 4.5. I mean, it moved within an hour. People bought it up. So Birdie, I think, got a 5. I think that's a good line to get. Based on some of these things that I'm looking into Burrow. I mean, at this point, you should probably just sit Burrow. I mean, he's clearly immobile in the pocket, folds under pressure, only 6 passes of 10 or more yards. I think that's on the season. 0 last week for 20 plus. Like I talked about earlier in the day, you don't stretch the field vertically. It allows the defense it just makes it so much easier on the defense. Longest reception, only 17 yards. Bengals averaged 3.3 air yards per completion, which is the worst in the NFL. And I was talking about play action in the chat with Birdie a little bit. Well, Bengals run play action and only 8% of dropbacks. That's third lowest in the NFL. And just to bring back up this Eagles team, part of the reason why I think their offense looks a little bit weaker this year is because they cut their play action rate in half from what it was last year. When you have a good, successful running game, which the Bengals do not in this case, but you got to lean on that. Meanwhile, Cardinals continue to impress me. Easily could have been 3-0 heading into that San Francisco game, in my opinion. And they forced San Francisco to play solid football. They were threatening in that game. I mean, I thought they were threatening in that game at least, even though I had no action on the game. I watched it. But this is another team, just like we talked about with the Rams. Their power ratings remind me of it. They're terrible ratings on defense and the offensive line, but they're still able to be competitive. And that's unlike others that fall in this class. These are 2 outlier teams, the Cardinals and the Rams, who are overperforming. But they do. I mean, they've been playing mistake-free football, man, taking care of the ball. Not as many penalties as a lot of the other teams we see. But at this number, this 3, it just looks so. It's just like it's almost like it's getting too low now. It's getting too out of control. I'm not backing the Cardinals at 3. That's for certain.
That's the problem. Leonard Porch Jr. says, take the names off the jersey and look at the numbers. And I think you've already bet the Cards. I can't take them at 3, which is fine. Sky Dragon says Cincinnati's played Baltimore, Cleveland 1 and 2 in yards per play allowed. Tennessee and the Rams both in teens in yards per play allowed. Arizona ranks 29th in yards per play allowed. You know, I think it's the 2 biases for me coming in and crashing into each other. And I would prefer not to have action on this game. I really would. This game makes me extremely uncomfortable. I'm so interested in what's going on in Cincinnati. So interested. I'm so interested in this football game. But those of you who got in at the 5.5s or the 5s or 6s or even the 4.5s, great work. But this game is not something that I'm going to be sitting hemming and hawing, I should say. Anything you want down for, I guess, you said it, just at 3, you can't do it.
I can't do it. Yeah, I'm not interested.
Do you agree with this market move towards the over? 3-point move? I guess with the yards per play allowed that Sky Dragon is talking about, is that the reasoning for why this has gone from 42.5 to 45.5?
I'm surprised to see that. And I believe in that range. I mean, I really didn't want to bet this game in the first place. Once it got to 3 on Monday, I was like, I don't really care about this game, but I'm pretty sure this movement in this range to the over, the under is hit at a pretty high rate. Let's see. I'll get back to you on that.
All right. Well, let's roll. Next up, 4:25 p.m. Eastern. New York Jets 1-3, 0-1 on the road at the Denver Broncos. 1-3, 0-2 at home at Empower Field in Mile High, Denver, Colorado. 76 Fahrenheit, sunny, 5 miles per hour. Let's get into the line history here for Jets Broncos. Sitting here with the Broncos at -1.5. That's exactly what it opened up at -1.5, -106. Now it's -1.5, -103. Nothing doing there. Totally normal. Let's move into the total for this one. Let's get over here for this total, we're sitting here at 43.5. It opened at 43.5. The under was -108. Now it's -113. It got up to -115. A very, very uncomfortable betting unders with this Broncos team. I just can't imagine doing it at this point. You have 60% of the tickets and 98% of the cash on the over. Well, obviously that makes me interested in the under. Then we have 26% of the tickets and 48% of the cash on the Broncos on the spread. On the money lines, 81% of the tickets and 83% of cash on the New York Jets here. So let's break it down here. The Jets come in off that tough 23-20 loss at home to the Chiefs, and we saw Zach Wilson finish with more completions, passing yards, and passing touchdowns than Mahomes while throwing fewer interceptions. No opposing quarterback has ever done that against Mahomes since he graduated high school. So that's 127 quarterbacks. So what does that mean? What does that mean about Zach Wilson? What are our expectations of him moving forward? He was 28 of 39 for 245 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also ran twice for 14 yards. He did lose a fumble. We know he's going to have issues with that. He was getting the ball to the right players. Garrett Wilson caught 9 passes for 60 yards. Garrett Wilson has to be involved. You had Alan Lazard catch 3 for 61 and Conklin catch 4 for 58. I mean, those are the guys who got to get involved. Breece Hall ran 6 times for 56 yards. And they held the Chiefs to 0-4 in the red zone. Please keep an eye on what the Chiefs do in the red zone after they have a monster day. I don't have it in front of me. I believe they went 5 for 5 against the Bears. Then they go on the road and go 0-4. They do this a lot. We cash unders on the Chiefs a lot after they have huge games. Now, I know this one didn't go to the under, but the Chiefs sure helped. 23 points. They put pressure on Mahomes, hit him 9 times. Ashton Davis, C.J. Mosley had interceptions, and Brandon Echols injured a hamstring in the second quarter and was ruled out. There's been no update on him. So after losing in historic fashion 70-20 at Miami in week 3, Broncos looked like they were on their way to another beatdown. Right? It was 28-7 in the final minute of the third quarter, and they stepped up. Came back against a weak team. Sean Payton got his first win as coach of the Broncos. Russell Wilson was 21 of 28 for 223 yards, 3 touchdowns. And Javonte Williams left the game with a hip injury, and we got to see Jaleel McLaughlin. I mean, this guy's numbers are insane. He's college football's all-time rushing leader. 8,166 yards. Now, it was Notre Dame College, Div 2, before moving to FCS, Youngstown State. But he's 5'7", and he's hungry. He wants to show everybody what he can do. He ran 7 times for 72 yards, caught 3 passes for 32 yards and a touchdown. Impossible not to cheer for him. Jerry Jeudy caught 3 for 52. The offense went 3 for 3 in the red zone. The Broncos defense got pressure on Fields. Nick Bonito was very big, 2.5 sacks. 1 was a strip sack. But this is a defense that just can't be trusted. Take it away for us here, Troy. Jets, Broncos, mile high.
I probably am on the other side of a lot of people in this game, and I'm confidently so. The Jets are coming off a loss at home against the Chiefs, and they played great. Zach Wilson played the best game of the season so far, easily, not even close. People think this is a letdown spot for the Jets. I see it completely differently. I see a team whose belief has been rejuvenated because their quarterback finally showed some damn promise. And this week, they're not playing the defending champs or the Bills or the Cowboys or the Patriots, 4 great defenses. They're playing the Broncos, who has the worst defense in the history of the NFL. And that's not my opinion. That's what the numbers are saying. For example, they allowed the highest completion rate in the history of the NFL so far this season at 78.5%. And, just looking at those numbers, I have to imagine, after watching what the Bears did to this team on offense, I believe that this Jets team will have success on offense, at least to some extent. On the other side, Jets defense showed up in the second half this past week. They kind of got routed in the first half, got jumped on real quick, and it was hard to come back from that. It reminded me of the Buffalo game. Both those games were at home, and they're on the road. Zach Wilson on the road in Denver. I'm not sure how much that matters versus this historically terrible defense. And, Zach Wilson, if he could continue to complete some of these passes, it's going to open things up quick for this offense. Mainly the run game and play action, which they used more in week 4 than they did in any other week this season. It takes pressure off this offensive line, which we know is sketchy at best, especially in pass blocking. They actually rate top 10 in the run blocking category, which is pretty surprising. But it's easy when Zach Wilson can't complete passes downfield. when your quarterback's not a threat, it's easy to stop the run. You could run block great, but not run if the safeties are able to fit down into the A and the B gaps like they have been versus the Jets. Meanwhile, the Broncos, they went toe-to-toe with the Chicago Bears. If Fields in this Bears offense, like I already said, man, if they can expose this defense and have explosive plays, I believe that the Jets and Zach Wilson can do so. Even if you omit that outlier walloping by the Dolphins, I mean, we've seen the Raiders. They were able to come into Mile High and get the win. The Commanders put up over 30 points. And then the Bears. I do not trust this Broncos team. I watched that game. And sure, I have concerns about Zach Wilson in this Jets offense. I don't think like it's going to be all rosy, it's going to be all rosy from here. But this spot reminds me of the Commanders versus the Eagles in Week 3. Commanders come, off a come from behind win on the road, just like the Broncos. They look great versus the Broncos defense. And the Broncos comeback was pretty impressive when you're watching it in real time. Then they come home in Week 3, the Commanders did, after getting that come from behind win, and they get absolutely smacked by the Bills. Some people, they think this is going to be a letdown spot for the Jets. I don't see it. I'm on the Jets plus 2.5, and I'm going to probably be on it in more than one way when it's all said and done.
What was your juice on the Jets plus 2.5?
I think I got a minus 110. Let me double check.
Initially, I want to be right there with you. It goes against the storyline for me. There's 0% chance I'm on the Broncos. It's Jets or no bet, but everybody talking about Zach Wilson finally having a good game. Everybody talking about what happened with the Jets at home. And, when it comes down to it, I want the Jets here, but it just doesn't fit the storyline for me that I need. And now maybe there are storylines that it does fit. And, DG saying Denver letdown spot after having rallied for 3 touchdowns down to win. But the whole, Zach Wilson feeling good about himself. Now, maybe is that enough for the Jets to play looser and more confident? And we talked about Conklin and Wilson and Lazard getting the ball, especially Wilson, how important it is that he caught those 9 passes, and that the relationship between Garrett Wilson and Zach Wilson has to be there. But I just, for me, even though the X's and O's tell me that you're on the exact right bet, I can't back them after, a hugely successful spot, even though they lost 23-20, hugely successful spot at home, and now they travel on the road. So it'll keep me off. But X's and O's, I completely get why you're on it. Troy on the Jets plus 2.5 at minus 110. Let's move on. 4:25 p.m. Eastern. Kansas City Chiefs 3-1, 2-0 on the road at the Minnesota Vikings 1-3, 0-2 at home. We're at US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Let's get into the line history here for this one. The total opens up at 51.5 at most books. What did it open up here? Opened up 52 here at Pinnacle, and is now at 53. So we have a total that is climbing. Let's get into the spread here for this one. We are sitting at 5 right now at Pinnacle. It opened up at 5, so we've had an 11-cent move towards the Vikings. There are some 4.5. Let me just see if there are any legit books with 4.5. Bovada hanging a 4.5. So that's it. So it's just Bovada. But it seems like the market is moving in that direction. And then let's get into the cash flow for this one. Sorry, let me move over here and get this up for Chiefs Vikings. We have on the spread 22% of the tickets and 48% of the cash on the Vikings. Then we have 6% of the tickets and 15% of the cash on the under, the over being hammered here. The Chiefs come in off a tough 23-20 victory at the Jets on Sunday night. Patrick Mahomes was not good, but he did enough to secure the victory. It's just like the Eagles. I don't want to fade these teams after they look bad. It's just not something that appeals to me at all. He looked really bad. And when we talk about when did you want to back the Chiefs? Like, we were all over them against the Bears because they were motivated after those 2 really ugly games where their offense looked terrible. And here he is coming off at 18 of 30 for 203 yards, touchdown, 2 picks. Now, he did break Dan Marino's record through his 200 touchdown 84th game. Marino did in 89. Kelsey caught 6 passes for 60 yards. With all the stuff going on with him right now, I don't know how much I want to count on him. Pacheco was a star, though. I mean, he's really showing out right now. 20 carries for 115 yards and a touchdown, caught 3 passes for 43 yards. And, 0-4 in the red zone at the Jets. That means they're going to be locked in. The defense allowed Zach Wilson to move the ball against them, and they got pressure on them, but the ball was being moved heavily against them. The Vikings coming off a 21-13 win at Carolina. Their offense did very little, but their defense stepped up and got them the win. The Vikes only had 265 total yards, 14 first downs, and were 1-8 on third down. I'm surprised. I think it's a bias here that this total is where it is. It's a vividness bias here. Now, if the reason why I'm not already on the under is because obviously the recency bias would make you think that the under is the look, because we just saw both teams struggle to score. Alexander Madison ran 17 times for 95 yards. He finally had a good game. Cam Akers made his Vikings debut. That was important for the squad. He ran 5 times for 40 yards, 2 catches for 11. The defense looked much stronger. I mean, they held the Panthers to 232 yards, but they're the Panthers. They held them to 0-2 in the red zone. The big difference here with that, some of the pressure was taken off of Danielle Hunter. Finally, Marcus Davenport was playing, and Harrison Smith was all over this field. I mean, he was an absolute monster. As a team, they finished with 5 sacks and 6 quarterback hits. Take it away for us here, Troy. Chiefs, Vikings.
God, I want to take the number I want to take this 5.5 with the Vikings. I know that you don't want to fade the Chiefs after what they put out there, but I think that they all these teams that play against the Bears, they come back down to earth. The Packers lose in week 2. The Chiefs with the non-cover probably should have lost that game yesterday. At certain points, I thought they definitely were going to lose that game. Who was the other team that the Bears played that the Bears play in week 3? Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay come out against the Philadelphia Eagles and don't cover. So I think, oh man, that's tough. That's tough. My mind's kind of racing right now, but this is another easy defensive opponent for the Chiefs. We saw what they were able to do against the Chicago Bears. I trust Flores way more than I trust anybody in Chicago to defend anything, but this blitz that Flores is running, just blitzing out of, just nonstop blitz, basically every down. Chiefs defense, I think, is a little bit overrated. They had the Bears, the Jags, the Lions. People are talking so highly of that unit. I'm not really that high on it. This total is a little bit high. Talking this out in real time is making me want the over, but now that 53, it's looking pretty big. I know totals that high typically go under. This Vikings defense is dreadful. 6 high, so we talked about I don't know if it's a common trend this year or what's going on, but yeah, the worst completion rate in the NFL history is the Broncos, and 6th in NFL history is the Vikings at this point. But offensively, the Vikings have been successful, and they do what I like teams to do. They run play action on 26% of their pass attempts. They turned a middle of the pack offensive line at best into one of the highest rated offensive NFL, one of the highest rated lines in the NFL. Pass block 4th, run block 7th. That's just kind of goes to show you, and why I'm preaching so heavily on this. I find it so interesting that all of these good offenses that teams have performed well on offense, despite the turnovers for the Vikings, they're running play action. They're throwing the ball downfield. I'm not going to be involved in this game, Jimmy. I'm just trying to give some opinions on it.
I can understand people wanting the Vikings at this number and the Chiefs back-to-back road games, but it's the under I want. And Dennis saying he loves the under here as well. This really staying away from them, but this might be a first half and full game under for me, because there could be some hijinks in the last few minutes of this game that would be concerning here. It won't happen if the Chiefs are ahead, comfortably. Then, when they're ahead comfortably, the second halves go under. So, but if it's too much, then, the back door opens up a little bit, just for the total going over, not for the spread being covered. But I like the under here, and I don't see why this would stop going up. So I think that we could see a 53.5. I really do. The public's all over this over.
Yeah, the over makes a ton of sense, and this total's too high. I mean, this is an under. I'm starting to lean there with you, man.
But I need to show some sign of buyback, and there will be a sign, and I don't want to wait too long. And maybe 53 is the right number. DG, have you already moved on the 53? I'd like to know that, but I think that the run game will be important, very important for both sides. When you play the Chiefs, the most important thing is that you got to keep the offense off the field as long as possible. You have to. You have to. If they're on the field all game, then you're screwed because your defense will just break down. AOD thinks this one goes over 34-24 for 58. And, AOD, a lot of people agree with you. 94% of the tickets are on the over right now and 85% of the cash. I think that's a really nice position to be in for the under. So I'll be watching it very, very, very closely. Maybe I should just get in on it tonight. I'll certainly be looking at it nonstop over and over and over again. That is our final afternoon game. We move on to the Sunday nighter, and this is going to be so big right here on Pub Sports Radio. And Dennis is saying that he will be betting it tonight. Dallas Cowboys 3-1, 1-1 on the road at the San Francisco 49ers, 4-0, 2-0 at home. We're at Levi Stadium, Santa Clara, California. Still very warm on the West Coast, warmer than usual. 77 Fahrenheit, sunny, 11 miles per hour is the wind. Let's get into the total here for this one. It's sitting at 44.5 at Pinnacle. It opened up at 45.5, so we have a 1-point move towards the under. Let's get into the spread for this one here as well. We're sitting at a 3.5. 3.5 at minus 108. This opened up at 4. The first move was to 4.5. Now it's come back to 3.5. A very interesting move towards the Cowboys here. Let's get into the cash flow then for this spot. We have on the spread 70% of the tickets and 90% of the cash on the San Francisco 49ers. 67% of the tickets and 97% of the cash on the under. That's a huge amount of cash on the under. Al Cervic says 49ers minus 3.5 already in. Brady said he bet the Cowboys plus 3.5. He'll be betting the under as well. 3.5 has been a bet waiting on the under. Wanted that 45.5 and missed it. Terry Walker looking at San Francisco. AOD says San Francisco owns Dallas. Harold Williams on the 49ers minus 3.5. We know that the public is going to be all over the San Francisco 49ers here. But I've left a lot of money on the table not betting the 49ers. The whole, sell high, buy low situation has not been working here on this one. So let's go. Cowboys bounce back in a big way after that surprising defeat at Arizona. I mean, they look dominant, feeling good about themselves. They went 38-3. Dak goes 20-34 for 261 yards. And it was Jake Ferguson that led the receivers with 7 catches for 77 yards. Gallup had 5 for 60. And Tony Pollard, we've been talking about this over and over again. Is Tony Pollard going to be able to be the guy game in and game out for a 17-game season? That's the reason why Zeke helped so much, because Zeke was the one who'd hammer in between the hash marks, and now you're asking a lot out of Pollard. And the Cowboys are still dealing with red zone issues, still dealing against red zone issues. 1-4 in the red zone. They put a ton of pressure on Mac Jones. They held the Patriots to 10 first downs. Their defense is now, more comfortable dealing with the Trayvon Diggs loss. And it's Duron Bland now moving to the outside. And he showed that there with 2 interceptions. 49ers coming off yet another easy victory. It's been a very easy run for them in the regular season. 14 straight regular season wins, 35-16 at home versus Arizona. Brock Purdy was almost perfect. I mean, franchise record. He sets the franchise record for completion percentage, 2021 for 283 yards and a touchdown. 9th time he's won in 9 regular season starts. 49ers have gone over the 30-point plateau in every game this year. Ayuk, 6 catches. He's just a monster right now. McCaffrey ran 20 times for 106 yards and 3 touchdowns, caught 7 passes for 71 yards and a touchdown. He broke Jerry Rice's franchise record for scoring a touchdown his 13th straight game, 395 yards of offense, and they only faced 5 third downs the entire day, 5 for 5 in the red zone. So I agree with this total here being set lower, and I expect the public to be all over the 49ers and the over, but we haven't seen that yet with the total. With the total, we've seen it drop to 44.5, and I think that's a sharp move on the drop, and we see 97% of cash on that under. This is the big one here, Troy. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on it. We're going to highlight the cappers in the chat as well. This is the big one. We'll be live for it right here on Pub Sports Radio. Dallas Cowboys, San Francisco 49ers. Take it away.
This is a tough game for me, just because I bet against the Cowboys last week. And, I always start to feel biased, especially recently in the following weeks after what has happened to me recently. But both these teams, especially this is the first competent offense both these teams are playing. Cowboys had the Giants, Cards, Jets, and the Pats. 49ers had Steelers, Rams, Giants, and Cardinals, all of which are ranking in the bottom half of the league. I think that if you can answer 3 questions in this game, you could pick the right side. Are the Cowboys going to be able to generate turnovers versus the San Francisco 49ers? 49ers don't seem to turn the ball over very often. Can the Cowboys stop the run? They're 27th in yards per rush at a little over 4.5 yards per attempt. And can the 49ers protect Purdy? Which they do use play action to their advantage because they're such a great running team. That right side of that San Francisco 49ers line does give me a little hesitation here. I thought I was going to be on the 49ers already, because if this number gets down to 3, my database has huge trends that say the Cowboys are the right side in this game. It's just a really tough game. But what has me leaning more heavily towards the Niners at this point is the Cowboys offense in the red zone. They're 30th in the NFL, 1-4 last week versus the Pats, and the lowest depth of target through 4 weeks of football, which is completely just mind-blowing to me, how they've been able to score so much on the defensive side to have all these blowouts that they've had so far this year. This line functionality, too, actually mimics what happened in the wild card game, and that never got down to 3, but it dipped. It first went towards the Niners and then away from the Niners, or excuse me. Yeah, I know the line functionality is the exact same. Come on, there's a lot of games. Cut me some slack. But I think that this is a spot I want to be on the 49ers. The only reason I haven't moved is because I did fade the Cowboys last week unsuccessfully. I will probably have Niners in my pocket when the time comes.
Right now, 90% of the cash on the San Francisco 49ers, 97% of the cash on the under. I think that the under is a nice spot here. But, 44.5 is lower than what I thought it would open up at. I was really hoping for a 46.5 to be on the board. This is going to be a great situation to live bet, a great situation. And the scripted plays from Shanahan, you have to think that the 49ers have an advantage early. If you put up McCarthy's scripted plays for Shanny's scripted plays, we all have seen what the Niners are doing early. They're just putting teams away immediately. And what do you think of that total sitting at from 45.5 to 44.5?
I struggle just because I know that this is the first true test for both these teams. The first competent offense one's faced, the first competent defense the other's faced. I don't have an opinion on the total at all. I can see it going both ways.
I think that the under is going to be my bet. I wonder if that the 45s are just all gone. Sky Dragon says that he has this at like 40. Says anything above 44 is a present. This is going to be a tough football game. I can't be on the 49ers here with 90% of the cash and the market moving, pretty swiftly towards the Cowboys. That's something that I need to respect. Even if I do think that San Francisco should be the side at home, I'm comfortable staying off and knowing that there's an opportunity to move on it live when we're all together. But I expect the under to be on my action, or the decision to bet it tonight. Or I don't think this is going back up. I think that this probably has to be bet tonight. I don't think this is going back up. I think I move on Cowboys 49ers. I think this is a playoff type game. Very, very, very tight. And also, I would imagine that either team is not going to want to open up their entire playbook. I imagine that there's going to be some things that they're going to want to save for the bigger games, and possibly seeing them again in the playoffs. So there you go.
That's a comment I just want to comment on something I seen in the chat. So Fly White Mike, he says, love the Niners. He really hopes the line hits 3. But if it hits that 3 and it closes at that 3, that's not good. Historically, when these lines move towards the road team and land on a home dog +3 or a home favorite +3, 11-4 the road team is against the spread and ATS, or against the spread and straight up.
Wow. Yeah. If this gets 3, I'd be very, very concerned for Niners backers. I expect to bet the under tonight. After talking about it all, I expect to bet it tonight. Cowboys, Niners. That's our Sunday night live stream. Let's move on to our Monday night live stream right here on Pub Sports Radio, Monday, October 9th, 8:15 p.m. Eastern. The Green Bay Packers 2-2, 1-1 on the road at Las Vegas. Raiders 1-3, 0-1 at home. We're at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, Nevada. Let's get into the line history here for this one. First off, the spread at Pinnacle down to 1. Well, it opened at 1, but there are 2s everywhere else, and it's not a real 1. Green Bay's -1 at -122. We probably get a better idea if we get to the money line on this one. So let's move to the money line. And here we go. From a money line perspective, the Packers are sitting at -130. They opened up at -109. There's been a constant move towards them. It went from -109 to -137. In about 36 hours. That's a big move towards these Packers. Let's take a look at the total for this one, our Monday nighter. Get to this total, and here we go. From a total perspective, we're sitting here at 44.5. This opened up at 43.5 and has climbed, and this 44.5 is juiced, and we see Bovada hanging the 45. Let's get into the cash flow for this spot here. From a money line perspective, it's 88% of the tickets and 96% of the cash on the Packers. From a spread perspective, it's much, much closer. 56% of the tickets and 56% of the cash on the Packers. And from a total perspective, you have 52% of the tickets and 87% of the cash on the over. Big bets have come in on that over, and the market has moved it a point. The Packers come in off extra rest that they need badly. They looked horrible on Thursday Night Football. 34-20, they lose. They were down 27-3 at the break. At the break, they were outgained 284-21. It was an embarrassment. It's a halftime deficit now that they've faced in back-to-back weeks of 17 points. It's the first time in franchise history. Jordan Love was 23 of 36 for 246 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks. Dubs caught 9 for 95. He's rolling right now, and he's very dangerous. Aaron Jones back, but the ground game was non-existent. As a group, they finished with 12 carries for 27 yards. The offense was held to just 230 total yards and was 3 for 11 on third down. Jones looked really pensive, on the ground. And they only held the ball for 22 minutes and 2 seconds. I imagine it's going to be very different here. They're going to want to have the ball for long periods of time. They're going to want to move the ball on the ground. They couldn't get enough pressure on Goff, 2 sacks, 6 quarterback hits, and they're missing important pieces. So Jair Alexander's back injury hurts him badly. Elgin Jenkins out for 2 straight games now with his knee injury. And David Bakhtiari's missed 3 straight games with his knee injury. And now Bakhtiari is on the IR. He was put on the IR, so he's going to miss at least the next 3 games. So we don't need to sit here and hum and haw whether Bakhtiari is going to be in. We know the offensive line won't have him. It's Elgin Jenkins that we need to wait for. And then, of course, Jair Alexander, who we need to figure out if he can be back. The Raiders coming off that 24-17 loss at the Chargers, and with Jimmy G in concussion protocol, Aiden O'Connell looked pretty good out of Purdue. 4th round pick out of Purdue, 24-39 for 238 yards, no touchdowns in the pick. He did fumble 3 times, losing 2 of them. That's a problem. But the Raiders got 6 more first downs than the Chargers did. You could see the issues that a young quarterback is going to have, and not a number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4 overall pick that we've seen those quarterbacks step up. But here with these 4th round picks, they went 1 of 11 on third down and 2 of 5 in the red zone. And that's what you're going to see. But they're capable of getting first downs, just not when it's all on the line and the defense tightens up. Josh Jacobs ran 17 times for 58 yards, caught 8 for 81. Devontae Adams got 8 for 75. and no one on the offensive line was able to stop Khalil Mack. I mean, it was wild watching him go crazy. 10 tackles and 6 sacks. It was unbelievable. The defense did a nice job slowing down Herbert. The Chargers offense was held to 305 total yards and 16 first downs. That surprised me. I mean, Herbert had career lows in completions, attempts, and yardage. We're talking about another quarterback who really needs the bye that he's receiving this week. And again, Max Crosby was the only Raider who was able to penetrate the offensive line. Nobody else is helping him up there. 2 sacks. Only 2 other Raiders managed to hit Herbert. They each hit Herbert once, but no sacks. Trayvon Morgan had a big interception in the fourth quarter, but they lose Donald Long to an ankle injury in the third quarter. Their cornerback, and there's been no update right now on his status. So I understand why people want to back the Packers. I expect this to be a nice bounce back opportunity for them, in Las Vegas, when we know they're going to have a ton of fans in the crowd. You're going to see a ton of green and yellow out there. And I think it's a great, bounce back spot. But as you said earlier, the money line here has been hammered. The spread has not. And I'm very interested what happens with this spread. Take it away for us here. Packers, Raiders, Allegiant Stadium. Our Monday nighter will be live right here for it. Take it away.
I think this game is going to be closely contested either way. So it's really hard for me to take a side when the line's at 1.5. I really don't see an edge when it comes to the side in this game. I think the Packers are going to perform well versus bad teams in this Raiders team. I mean, what are we going to get? They held the Chargers scoreless in the second half. Khalil Mack, 8 sacks. This pass blocking at one point through 2 weeks in the NFL season, the Raiders were number 1 in pass blocking. Well, that's not the story, as they dropped all the way to 10th now. I just don't know exactly what to expect from these two teams, but I do know the home team's a dog. I do know this game's on Monday night. So primetime unders, the home team's a dog. It failed me with the Jets, and I should have been back on it the following day with the Giants. I didn't do it. Instead, I backed the Giants like a fucking dumbass. Well, I'm not going to miss my opportunity this game. I'm going to move right now on the under 44.5.
Moving on. Well, we can give you a 45. I mean, a 45 is available. Pinnacle is going to move this and move everybody because their 44.5 is juiced minus 112 to the.
I can get a 45 at PointsBet. I'll roll with you. Yeah, 45. Thanks, Jimmy. I appreciate you, man.
No worries. Troy moving on this under 45. What's the juice over at PointsBet?
Minus 110.
Regular juice for Troy. Do you have interest in backing the Packers here? And if so, what would keep you off it at this point?
I just don't know. After seeing what happened with the Packers in the last game, and I know they've been sitting, they've had extra rest, they've been thinking about getting their asses whooped and embarrassed in front of the whole entire country on Thursday Night Football. I mean, I'm definitely not backing the Raiders at this point. I would be on the Packers. I mean, that's the side I'm leaning to right now, Jimmy.
And I can understand Sky Dragon saying, what has Green Bay done to be road chalk? Beat terrible Chicago, lost to terrible Atlanta, come back against a backup quarterback with the Saints. And I can agree with all that. When Aaron Jones is healthy and the comeback by the Raiders in the second half, the Chargers were a banged up squad that knew they were about to go on their bye week. I really felt the focus dropped, and it was an easy live bet on the Raiders. That's the way I can explain the comeback from the Raiders and the disappointing offense from the Chargers. And look, they're still reeling over the injuries. We're waiting for their stars out wide, one of them to get hurt. Of course, it's Mike Williams, and he's gone for the season. DG says the Raiders stink too. That's true, but it's not like Green Bay has done anything to lay points on the road. Look, I agree with that, and I can understand moving on the under here, regardless of who's at quarterback, because when push came to shove and they needed a first down, the Raiders were incapable of getting one with O'Connell. Maybe he'll be better here at home.
And the Raiders have the slowest pace in the NFL. They have the least amount of plays run in per game.
But this total here climbing the way it is going to have me sit back and figure it out. I'm not going to move on it. And the concern about the Packers here, if they deserve it, I see a big bounce back spot for Aaron Jones. I really do. Now he needs to practice in full every day this week. I mean, you want to see things like that. I think that this is a buy low spot for them, and you could say it's a buy low spot for the Raiders, but they're going to be buy low spots for the Raiders every game all year. I mean, they're just a bad football team. We have their win total under. We expect them to go for the first overall pick. That's the expectation here that I have for the Raiders. So, but I don't want the Packers enough right now. I want to see Aaron Jones. I want an explanation from him for why they were so bad on the ground. He has to be a huge part of this offense, and when he's not, they're bad. Al Cervic says first half under is what he's hearing. Yeah, I'm going to keep an eye on this total as it's climbing right now. And Jared TG says two bad defenses here. He expects a ton of rush yards on both sides. I like that. I get that. All right.
Good. That's good for the under. Hopefully they're not explosive runs and just keep it 4 or 5 yards a pop. We'll be good with the under.
I like it. I like this card. It's I found this one harder than last week's one when I had, I came in with spots that I knew I was going to attack. There was nothing that I felt really confident about here, but we've opened it up and now I'm starting to see what I'm going to move on this evening. To get things started here, Troy moved on a teaser with the Commanders -0.5 and the Lions -2.5. That's where he gets his card started. The under 48.5 is what I'm looking at for the Jacksonville Buffalo spot. At this point, I don't think I move on it tonight. I think I'm going to hold off before I move on it tonight. Then we have Troy on the Falcons -1.5 and -112. This is another under, but I'm less confident in it. So I'm definitely not moving on that tonight. Panthers, Lions, we stayed off. Then the under and the Colts is what I want for Titans Colts, but I'm going to be hesitant for that. I'm going to look at it a little bit longer tonight. Then we move on to the Giants, Dolphins, and the under in that one. The Giants are just incapable of putting up points. If my game script has the Dolphins to dominate this game, I have to question why then I'm not on them. And I know that it works for the under, and I do see the bounce back spot for the Dolphins, but I'm still confused with how bad are the New York Giants exactly. I still need to sit with that. I know they're awful, but is this like a 3-win team? And I need more time with it. But I tell you, I'm going to be on the New Orleans Saints against the Patriots. I'm going to be on the Saints on the road, and I'll be on the Steelers at home against the Ravens. That both will be bet. I'm going to be on the under in the Eagles-Rams. Ron Crawford's spreadsheet play today is the Rams. Bengals Cardinals is a stay off spot at this point. Troy is on the Jets +2.5 at -110. The under in Kansas City, Minnesota, although I'm curious to see how high it will go. We haven't really seen a sign of buyback, but I don't want to have to be watching this total every 30 minutes for comfort. And then the under in Dallas, San Francisco makes the most sense to me. It really does here with, the 49ers having 4 straight 30-point games and this being a really tough one. Very interested in it. And then Troy's moved on the under 45 in Packers Raiders. So that is locked in as well. So there we go. And
Jimmy, numbers right now for 3 officials.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. I'm just checking.
Well, I'll look and see exactly what you tweet out, but for my notes, and then I'll add them to my notes. But right now I have you on the under 45 on Monday night, and I have you for the Jets +2.5. Then I have you on that teaser off the hop. And I guess, is that it at this point?
It should be all my action. Okay. But I'm with you on a lot of these that we're looking at. Colts, I'll probably have Colts in my pocket. 49ers, I'm starting to lean first half. Falcons, Texans under. KC, Minnesota under. Like you said, Jimmy, if you tweet that one out, tag me on it because I'll know there's some buyback that you're seeing, and I'll definitely move on it with you. I'm waiting. I'll definitely be on that under. Steelers, I got a question mark, and Saints, I got a question mark. Still got to figure out some more on those spots, or just fucking get some faith somehow in the Steelers with that dreadful quarterback. Just bad quarterback plays haunting me right now with Daniel Jones and Mac Jones from last week. So
here we go, man. Here we go. It was very impressive what you did last week on a tough week. You go 8-10 and still end up plus 0.92 units. It was a very tough week. I was in great shape until Sunday and Monday. Ended up 5-5, down 0.51 units. You have ROI plus 8.28% through 68 bets this year. Very impressive. Let's keep climbing. We have no show without you guys. Thank you so much for all the cappers in the chat supporting the show. Thank you. Lanil, Nate Cerna, Al Cervic, Sammy Calmer, Jacqueline, Blue Numbers, Christopher Comentini, Skydragon, Birdie, Harold Williams, Jared TG, Sammy Calmer, Truth Teller. Thank you guys. Truly, truly thank you. And now let's get to work, man. Now let's get to work and get that cash. Rants, K. Graham, Loyalty Chisel, Terry Walker, Joe, Marked Up Productions. Thank you guys so much. I love it. I love it. And God, this is a big, big week like everyone is. There's so much on the line and the stakes are so high. So let's go out there and get that cash. Troy, any last words for the cappers supporting the show?
Hey, stay locked in. It's a long season. If you're down units, let's get it back. Let's fucking get in the black and let's make it happen, man.
Let's go. Thank you to our producer, Jose Bouquet, for all of the hard work behind the scenes. And now he's going to be up all night cutting these videos. Thank you for all of that, Jose. Now it's time for us to go out there and get that cash. Week 5 awaits. The Thursday Nighters, a bum fight. And then we get into real action on Sunday. And we have the marquee game of the year thus far with the 49ers and the Cowboys Sunday night. They'll be live right here on Pop Sports Radio. So that's it for us. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. Now let's go out there and get that fucking cash.